with Barry waking up from his bed. He thinks, was it all a dream? He then walks through his house. He sees pictures of him, his father, and his mother, but they are pictures of Barry as he is now, at the same age. Barry walks around. He sees a home-cooked meal already prepared on the table. He then goes further through the house. He doesn't see any damages. He also notices, wait, this is the same house I grew up in. I'm living here now? He walks around. He's just totally shocked at what he's seeing. Barry holds up a picture of his mother standing next to him at his graduation. He cries, saying, I finally did it. I'm back. Barry then looks to the door. As it opens, his father and mother walk through. Barry is completely shocked. His father and mother says, what, you never seen us walk through the door before? Barry then runs and hugs both of them. They say, what's wrong, Barry? Barry says, I just had a bad dream that you were gone and I never want to lose you. The father walks up and says, come on, Slugger, you really that scared of a bad dream? The mother then says, Barry, don't listen to your father. We will not want to lose you either, and kisses Barry on the head. He says, Mom, what are you doing today? The mother turns around and says, well, I'm actually not doing anything. I was planning on just sitting watching a movie with your father. Barry says, can we all go out and do something? The parents are shocked, saying, usually kind of private, but yeah, we would love to go out and spend time with you. Barry then prepares to go out with his family when he walks outside and he sees someone running past. It's a Flash. He says, whoa, wait. At first he thinks that it is a reverse Flash, but upon looking at the news and other news articles, he sees this is a new Flash called Kid Flash running past in a silver suit. Barry says, wow, there's another Flash. So I don't even have to be one. I can be completely normal. I have everything I've ever wanted. Barry then thinks, oh, I gotta go see what the rest of the city is like. He then tries to use his super speed, but with no avail. Barry realizes that without him actually experiencing his mother's death, he will have no reason to actually go into the field of crime, which means he has no reason to become the Flash. Barry being so confused about the new timeline, he's going to go visit the only other superhero he knows, Arrow. Not having access to his speed, Barry is going to be forced to use public transportation to get to Starling City. Now, Arrow is a semblance for Batman of the Flashpoint. Arrow is a billionaire. Arrow uses very, I'll say, minute, high but low-tech weapons. You know, he's not fully armored like Adam. Batman is neither. They both are, I'll say, very super active. They are billionaires by day, superheroes by night. They both had a tragic past. Their parents both were getting killed. So the CW is really building up Arrow to be the semblance for Batman in the Flashpoint. Now, as Barry arrives at Starling City, he's going to see the meta outbreak is surprisingly more controlled than Central City. It's not random and unpredictable. When the metas pop up, there is a quick task force to deal with the situation. He then goes to look for Oliver Queen, but is shocked to find out that Oliver Queen died on the ship instead of his father. Now, Barry is really shocked to hear this because there are Arrow sightings around the city. He was even drawn to the city because someone did an entire news article about it. He thinks it's weird. Now, he's going to go to where Arrow had his base of operations, his main building. He's going to go there to try to look for Oliver Queen working there, but instead he's going to run into his father, Robert Queen. Now, Robert Queen is actually the Green Arrow. Robert Queen is also the mayor, and he's a billionaire. Robert Queen has all the city under his control. Barry is going to tell Robert Queen that he knows he's the Arrow because his son was the Arrow in his time period. Robert Queen is not going to buy that, and he's going to think Barry is a spy. Robert Queen is then going to get Barry taken down somewhere and about to be killed. The war has spread to the city because Robert Queen is funding the war. Barry finds out. Robert Queen is still the bad guy. Remember, Robert Queen was never a good guy. He was the reason why the city was all corrupt. That's why Oliver killed all those people that were in his journal. Barry is going to find out the hard way that Robert Queen is a bad guy. Now, Barry's going to get taken down to the basement, about to get killed, when he's going to get saved by Arrow. But it's not the Arrow that he thinks it is. This Arrow is going to be Thea. It has to be somebody that's closely related to Arrow and the story in general. Now, Barry is going to reveal to Thea that he knows who she is. Thea's going to question. Barry's going to say it's a long story. Thea is then going to tell Barry everything about Robert Queen and how he's the evil Arrow, that he actually does not save people. He kills people who can stop the war. There was a sonic device that was made. Robert Queen destroyed it. That sonic device could temporarily disable metahumans' abilities. Next, someone found out that he's smuggling weapons to the military and to the metahumans. Guess what? He kills the person. Now, Barry's going to get taken to the Arrow base, mainly because 1, he knows where it's at, 2, he knows everybody who's in there. Now Theo wants to know, how does he know that? Barry gets there and tells everybody the events that happen. Arrow thinks that he's crazy, and by Arrow I mean Team Arrow. Then Team Arrow traps him in the cave. Believe me, you know how Team Arrow loves keeping people trapped in that cave. They kept Diggle's brother trapped in that cave. They kept Nyssa in that cave. They kept Malcolm in that cave. They've kept everybody in that bleeding cave. That's just what they do. Now, they're going to keep him locked in the cage until a metahuman is going to attack. Barry's going to say, I fought that metahuman before in my timeline. They're not going to believe him. They're going to go and try to take on the metahuman. They're going to lose. Once they manage to get back, Barry's going to tell them the secret to killing that metahuman. Once they go take down the metahuman, that's going to make them actually believe him. Barry and Team Arrow planning on how to take down Robert Queen, the new Arrow. Cisco contacts Barry and tells him how he can now see through the timeline and he knows who Barry really is. Now remember, Cisco remembered dying when Barry changed the past. So Cisco having these powers, he can see through any time change. Now Barry is actually about to introduce Cisco to the others. Well, he's on the phone. He's about to tell them about Cisco when a metahuman alert showed a fast-running meta going all throughout the city. Now, a camera is hijacked by Felicity. They try to pinpoint the meta, but then out of nowhere, he just stops. When they get a clear view of it, the man looks up. Barry is horrified. It's Zoom, he says. Now, let's be honest, Zoom can still exist because we need a valuable speedster villain. And in the Flash, already we have Zoom. Now, he was taken by the Time Rave. Now, it makes sense that Zoom will come back as a Time Rave in order to get Barry because he's the #1 guy who screwed up the time stream in general. Now, Barry then tells everyone about Zoom. Once he does, everyone understands the full level of danger they are in. Barry then tries to contact Cisco, but Wally West actually confronts Zoom in the streets. Wally asks, "Who are you?" That's when he says, "I am Black Flash." Black Flash then questions Wally about Barry. Wally then says, "Why do you want Barry?" Black Flash then gets angry and then starts asking more questions in a more threatening tone. Wally then charges at Black Flash. Black Flash grabs Wally with one hand and begins to drain his life, as well as punching him 5 times in the stomach and then kicking him into the wall. Then he runs off. Remember, Black Flash wants Barry. He doesn't want Wally, and the Time Raves only go after who they want. Now, if you're in their way, they'll hurt you. But other than that, they're only going after speedsters. That's when Barry tells everybody about how to steal someone's speed using Harrison's invention. Now, as they're talking about this, they're on their way to get Wally's body. He's not dead, but he's unconscious. They bring him back to the Arrow Cave. Wally then wakes up pretending to be unconscious to see where he's at. Barry tells them about Wally and how he gave up his speed in order to save him. Wally hears this and can't believe it. He then feels a type of indebtedness to Barry. Then, let's be honest, Barry has a big mouth. He's going to tell everybody everything. That's what he does. Hell, in the first episode, he told them twice. No, actually, the first and second episode. Twice. He told them, I changed the timeline. Like, seriously, dude? He's a big mouth. He always tells people his identity. He's just a royal big mouth. Now, they're going to actually begin working on trying to steal the Black Flash's speed. Barry's then going to tell them about why Zoom actually looks like that. He's going to tell them how the Time Raves took Zoom, and now the Time Raves are after him. Everybody asks why. And then Barry tells them the Time Raves only goes after people who changes history. Wally West waking up from his previous encounter. He then decides to join Team Arrow because he heard what Barry said and he began to trust him. But a thought lingers in his mind. Why is Black after Barry? And how does Black even know about him? Barry goes more into Black Flash, saying that he wants revenge for him going back in time, I guess because he now is a time wraith, he's his new target. Now, things just do not add up right to Wally, but Wally still goes along with everything. Barry then tells Wally the materials they need to take down Black Flash. Wally then runs off to his city to gather them. Meanwhile, in the distance, it is spreading throughout the street. Metahumans are terrified of the Black Flash taking down the Flash and having that terrifying face. This reaches to Robert Queen. He sees the new Black Flash as a threat and wonders, who is he? With no answer, Robert gets angry and yells, who is he? Because of him, weapon sales are down. Nobody is fighting because everyone is scared of him. The new guy who can take down the almighty Flash. Who is he? Get to work and find out who he is, he says that to all of his minions. He then becomes Arrow to find answers himself at Star Labs. He goes to Star Labs for a device to slow down Wally, but they haven't stabilized this. Robert was working with Star Labs to make a device that can slow down Wally to capture his speed. Back at the Arrow Cave, Barry is still being questioned by Diggle and everyone else. A question arrives in Diggle's mind. If you went back in time to stop the Zoom, or the Black Flash as you call it, Barry says yes. He says, why didn't they go after him, and why is it coming after you now? Barry says at that fight with Zoom, he had to create a time remnant, and that's the reason why they're after him. As he's explaining, an alert comes up in the Arrow Cave. It's Robert Queen, and he's breaking into a nearby building. Thea and Diggle pursue. They actually meet Robert Queen in the warehouse and go after him. Robert Queen badly beats Thea and Diggle. They cannot match his overwhelming martial arts ability, his legal assassin training, and his overall better technology. As they get knocked out, the police come and arrest them. As they're being taken to the station, Barry calls Wally and tells the situation. As he's doing that, Wally is running back with the materials on his back. He sees Thea and Diggle in a cop car, shakes the door apart, and breaks them out, and runs them back to the Arrow Cave. Once Wally arrives, the team builds the device, and then they lure Black Flash out. Barry is just standing in an open field. Black Flash runs and sees him. Black Flash isn't stupid. He knows that this is a trap. In an effort to distort the team, Black Flash reveals saying that, Barry, do they know the truth behind why I'm after you? And how everything that's happening now is all your fault? Everyone in Team Arrow is staring at Barry because now they know the truth. Black Flash also tells Wally that his father was alive and well in the old timeline. Because of that, no one can concentrate, and they fail on the sneak attack. Wally attacks Barry instead of guarding him, slamming him into a wall, and questions him more. You lied! You killed my father? He yells in his face. Barry says, please, they understand. No, Wally says. Diggle was supposed to shoot the boot at Black Flash, but because of him being distraught, he missed his cue. Once he shot it late, the Black Flash revealed a new ability, being able to stop time. In the same instant that a water droplet going from the forehead to the eyebrow can happen, Black Flash runs and disables all of the traps that were set for him. He even grabs the boot and puts it on Diggle's leg, as well as grabs Wally, throwing him off of Barry, and then picking Barry up by his neck. Black Flash smiles and says, let me guess, the plan was for that boot to hit me, and then a sonic device tuned to the same frequency that killed the Time Wraith in the other timeline would hit me and bring me down long enough for capture. Barry is shocked. Black Flash says, I am the Speed Force. I am time. There is nothing you can do that I will not know about. Black Flash mission accomplished. He's about to run off when Robert Queen shoots Black Flash in the neck with the same tranquilizer that was used against the Reverse Flash. The tranquilizer slows down Black Flash long enough for Wally to run, save Barry, and punch Black Flash over 30 times. And then he grabs Black Flash running miles away and then lets him go. He is seen flying into the sky in the distance. Once Robert lands from getting off the rooftop, Diggle points a gun at Robert. How did you know we were here? Robert tells Diggle about the tracker on Speedy's quiver, and then Speedy looks at her quiver and takes the device out. Diggle still points his gun at Robert. Robert says, if you want to die, keep pointing that at me. Robert then throws a mini arrow, knocking the gun out of Diggle's hand. Robert says, if you want to take him down, you'll need my help. Speedy comments saying, we're just doing fine. Robert says, It seems so. Wally then looks at Team Arrow and says, "Did you see what I just did? I sent him flying miles away. There's no way he can possibly survive that." Barry then interrupts and tells them about how a time wraith can get kicked out of high velocity and they will not feel anything and they'll continue the charge. Diggle says, "Why the hell should we listen to you?" Barry gets up and says, "Because we need to have a talk." Diggle says, "About what?" "The truth." Barry is telling the whole truth to Team Arrow at the Arrow Cave and how he blamed himself for the whole thing that's happening now. He gets interrupted by Wally as Wally says, "So your father dies and you go back in time to kill mine, right?" Everyone starts listing all problems in their life that is all contributed to Barry's time change. Barry starts to cry. Wally says, "You're more of a monster than anyone in history, including Zoom." He runs off in anger. As Barry turns around to try to explain himself because he turned back, he was crying, Diggle punches Barry in the mouth, sending him flying, breaking his nose. Diggle then says, in anger with his fist clenched, "My mother, my brother, my father, they all got killed trying to expose Robert. You're telling me because of your time change this happened?" Thea then calms Diggle down by grabbing and hugging him. Thea then walks and says, "She's not Robert's child, but he put her on the street once her mother died by the hands of a meta. It was all great. I thought he actually considered me a daughter. Diggle and Felicity found me," she continues. "I was hungry, cold, and scared. They gave me purpose. I knew it was them because my father would always talk about how this helmet vigilante was causing problems. I thought that he was the bad guy, but I was wrong. My father was a real evildoer." Tears flow down Diggle's eyes. He's angry. "Andy, this is all your fault. Andy would have been alive if it wasn't for you." He then goes to choke Barry. Thea jumps in front of him saying that he's the only one that can fix this. Right? Barry says, "Yes, with my speed." Diggle then says, "Can't Wally do it? He's a speedster." Barry interrupts saying, "I'm the only one who knows how the whole situation went down." Back at Queen's Labs, Robert is sitting at his desk monitoring for activity of the Black Flash, known sightings, anything. While he's there, he's also trying to see what the Black Flash's blood is made off of. He got the arrow with the blood on there from the tranquilizer he shot into the Black Flash. He could not do anything about it. He couldn't figure out what was going on. So then he hands the agent to Amanda Waller. Both powerful people with different agendas for this blood. Wally is then seen running down the street, dealing with what happened, blaming Barry all the way. Black Flash sees Wally is crying, and then Black Flash gets an idea. His evil, crooked smile. He then chases after Wally into the distance. Black Flash says, "I may not have to capture Barry on my own. I could possibly use him to do it." Wally West running down the street. He stops at an abandoned building, and there is a Black Flash looking at him. Wally, terrified, tries to run away, but Black Flash blocks him at every turn. Wally then begins to fight, throwing numerous punches at Black Flash. Black Flash easily pushes them all away. Black Flash is about 5 times faster than Wally. Wally thinks in his mind as Black Flash grabs him and slams him on the ground by his neck. Black Flash looks down at Wally. As Wally looks up, Wally sees Black Flash's face. He is horrified. "You're not even human." Black Flash says, "I was, but I'm not anymore thanks to Barry." Wally then stops struggling. Black says, "If you help me capture Barry, I will fix the timeline." Wally says, "Why should I trust you?" Black then says, "Who are you going to trust? Barry?" Black Flash then lets Wally up. Wally says, "My father, can..." Black Flash interrupts, "If you help me get Barry, I will go back and stop that meta from killing your father. As you see, I'm fast enough to do it." Black and Kid Flash shake hands, and an alliance is formed between them, the unholy kind. Back at the Arrow Cave, Barry is icing his nose from Diggle's punch. Everyone is sitting there silent. Diggle is just angrily staring at Barry. Then walks in Cisco. Diggle immediately pulls a gun. Cisco breaks open a breach, and the breach eats the gun. Diggle is shocked. He says, "What are you?" Barry gets up and says, "Oh, he's my friend." And then Diggle says, "Is that supposed to make me feel any better?" Cisco says, "Whoa, looks like I walked into something big." As he says that, Pied Piper and Canary walk in. They say the same thing. Barry looks up. He's shocked to see them. He runs. "Laurel, You're all right. Hartley. They both look at each other and say, who are you? Barry says, I knew you, but in a different timeline. Hartley says, excuse me? Cisco explains the situation to them, and then they just do not believe it. Then Cisco uses his new ability. He can show people the different vibrations in the timeline. They see the entire other timeline that Barry was in, and they see that Laurel dies at the hand of Damien Dark. Hartley breaks down, seeing his wife die. Laura is horrified. She says, the only reason I'm alive is because I'm in hell? Hartley goes ballistic, saying, we're not doing this. Laurel stops him and says, one life for millions. You cannot possibly compare that. Hartley then says, I can. Barry says, well, in that time, you didn't know her, so you won't miss each other. Hartley then runs and one-shots Barry, laying him out. Barry lays there unconscious. Diggle then falls back laughing at Barry and says to Hartley, you got a haymaker stronger than mine. Laurel then grabs Hartley and takes him outside and tells him, we have to save everyone. We knew the risk of dying when we started. We can't let everyone live in hell just so we can be in heaven. And we're not even in heaven. Hartley says, I'll be in worse hell if you leave me. Laurel says, like he said, we won't know each other then. We have to do this, not for ourselves, but for everyone else. They both walk in, and Hartley apologizes to Barry, even though Barry's unconscious, and they agree to help the team. Then he thanks Barry as Barry's waking up 30 minutes later. Hartley then in turn thanks Barry. Everyone is shocked. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to fall in love with Laurel. Laurel walks up and says, thank you for giving me a second chance in life. If you hadn't done this, I would have been dead. Barry turns around and says, I don't deserve an apology for what I've done. I'm sorry to you all. Since I've been here, I've caused you all nothing but heartache. In another location, Amanda Waller is working on the blood for Black Flash. It is revealed that they don't have the technology to either read this or it's not blood at all. This is what she told Robert. Robert gets enraged and says, you bitch, you're lying to me, and points an arrow at Amanda. Amanda says, calm down as the security runs in on him. Guns drawn, a battle is about to break out. Amanda says, stop! Listen, Robert, even though we may not like each other, we cannot be at odds with each other right now, especially since we have a power that's running around the city stronger than the Flash. If we do not take care of this, if we don't look after ourselves, nobody will survive this. Robert agrees and puts down his bow and says, I apologize, Amanda. Things have just been very stressful. Robert then gets a call and immediately leaves from Argus. Moments later, in an unknown location, Robert is seen with his hand behind his back looking into the night sky. A limo pulls up behind him and out walks a man in a black suit. He walks up to Robert. Robert says, I'm sorry, Master, but because of these complications of this new speedster, dealers are scared to sell our weapons. Buyers are scared to even come outside. War in the city has went down dramatically because of everyone's fear of the Black Flash. This is all my fault, Master. The Master then puts his hand on Robert and says, my son, I've lived for longer than you can ever imagine. And the one thing that I've learned is patience. Robert says, that's easy for you to say, Mr. Savage. You have all the patience in the world. Vandal then says, yes, so I'm the best one to tell you how to actually spend your patience. They both smile and walk into the limo and drive off. Wally racing back to Barry and the others. Once he arrives, there is an ominous silence in the air. Now, Barry asks if Wally is okay, and Wally just gives Barry this menacing look. And he says that he wasn't at first, but now he hopes that this whole situation can be fixed. Now, Barry and Cisco try to work on Barry getting his speed back to help fight the Black Flash. They talk about going to Star Labs after the explosion caused by the escaped metahuman test subjects under Dr. Wells. Yeah, bringing Wells in as a villain here. Alright, now, Wells has a machine that can measure newer type of futuristic vehicles. But Cisco has the brains to get the job done and make it so it can generate electricity to give Barry his speed back, similar to how the Electrical Man stole Barry's speed before and he got it back then. I don't know why they didn't even try that in season 3. Anyway, Now, Team Arrow leaves on a patrol to monitor the criminal activity of Robert Queen, and by Team Arrow I mean Diggle and Thea. They discover him and Vandal Savage discussing the grand plan of the series. Now, the plan is to control and make Vandal Savage and Robert Queen metahumans, controlling all the metahumans and then being the metahumans. Vandal Savage will rule the world, and with Vandal Savage being immortal, he will continue to rule the world after Robert Queen is long dead. Now, the offices are so dense that the audio could not be captured by Thea or Diggle's technology. So, Thea took out her camera phone to take a picture of who Robert was talking to. Now, made such an intensely bright light of a flash that Vandal Savage got aware to it. He looks up, and then Robert looks up, and they see Diggle and Thea. Now, Thea and Diggle make an escape by using Thea's arrow to get across to the next building. Now, the Queen's bodyguard starts shooting at Thea and Diggle across the way, hitting Diggle in the leg, making it near impossible for him to move on his own. Now, Thea took Diggle and dived in the cover, taking a barrage of bullets. Thea starts shooting arrows, and Diggle starts firing a machine gun. They radio back to the arrow cave for backup. Wally was off taking care of metahumans and was not answering his line. Now, he was looking for Power Outage. Now, Power Outage was a metahuman that the Flash fought in the earlier seasons of the Flash. He's a metahuman that can harness the power of electricity. He also can siphon the Speed Force from Barry. Black Flash told Wally to have Cisco make an extract of Power Outage's blood to use it on Barry. Wally finds Power Outage in a abandoned building. In a panic, Power Outage starts shooting wildly at Wally multiple times. Now, with lightning shooting all over the place, and of course Wally West being able to dodge all of this, the buildings collapse, causing the death of Power Outage. But Wally still managed to get a DNA sample from him. Now, Black Flash tells Wally to tell Team Arrow he was fighting Power Outage and he managed to steal some of his speed. So that's how he got the idea to make an extract so maybe they can use it against the Black Flash. Thea and Diggle are taking immense gunfire from the Queen's bodyguards. Felicity is panicking about the situation. Felicity manages to hack their communication and tries to crash it in order to stop the heavy onslaught. Will try to stop it. Now, Harley tells her to stop. Harley explains that the frequency in his gloves can link up to the Queen's communication link and send a high frequency. Felicity stops him and says, just do it. Harley finds the link and sends the frequency through the building and the headsets. The Queen's men began lying in agony as Thea and Diggle manage to escape safely, but not before Vandal Savage sees them swinging off. Now, Harley sent a ear-deafening frequency that disabled communications, disabled actual people. It was so loud it even managed to break the glass. Now, back at the lab, Cisco and Barry are analyzing the blood sample from the meta Wally brought. Now, that was Power Outage, if you forgot. Now, Barry explains to Wally that he lost his speed in a similar way that happened to him, and it was kind of funny that it happened in that way. Now, Diggle and Thea arrives back at the Arrow Cave badly injured. Diggle's wound is looked at by Barry. They explain what happened and how a mysterious man was sitting there conversating with Robert. Now, the picture was on Thea's phone. She showed it to Barry and it was indeed Vandal Savage. Barry explains in horror who this man is, and he even tells him about the time that he managed to kill everybody in the city and how he had to run back in time in order to stop it. Now, the team's worry only increased when they see on the news about the metahuman war continuing. Now, Barry is curious about the roots of the metahuman war. He doesn't understand what happened with it. Harley explains that when Harrison Wells was experimenting with metahuman anomalies in the human gene, one was powerful enough to escape from his prison, attacking scientists and rampaging through the building enough that it caused a chain reaction, which is known as a particle accelerator. It actually managed to turn it on and disrupt it, so it hit the right charge and boom, particle accelerator explosion. Now, humans have made technological advances just to combat this war. Now, the whole metahuman war is metahumans rising against humanity because the experimental metahumans are rallying, telling the other metahumans that the human race will experiment on you if you do not fight. Now, like I said, humans have made technological advances just to combat this war. The ones who escaped so far are only known by their code names, and these were the ones who were experimented on by Harrison Wells. Codename Grodd, codename Ice Queen, codename Firestarter. Now, Harley explains the whole point of the war is based on fear that the government will experiment on them for their own gains, and the lab Harrison was running was hugely funded by the government and other interested parties. The metahumans want to rule and destroy everything humanity has to offer. Barry explains how Wells was in his timeline. Well, he explains both of them. He explains the Wells who was Eobard Thawne, and he also explains the Wells from Earth 2. Now, Barry says, why hasn't anyone arrested Harrison Wells for these crimes? Nobody should let him get away with this. Harley explains that Harrison Wells is leading in the Argus technological advancement to save humanity from these metahumans. He's the one who started it all, and now he has the power to try to control or end it all. Back in the Arrow Cave, Diggle and Thea are still recovering from their wounds. Thea is just taking a nap, and Diggle's gunshot wound is keeping him down. Cisco and Barry are still trying to break through Power Outage's blood to steal the Black Flash's speed. Now, Wally runs back to the city to check on Iris. Iris is now working as a task force for the new metahuman problem. Police in this time only monitor the metahuman problem. Now, she already knows his identity, so he doesn't have to worry about being sneaky when he goes up. He can just run right up to her and just talk to her. Now, Felicity curiously asks Barry more about the other timeline. Felicity wants to know what her role really was in there. Cisco grabbed her hand and showed her everything. Felicity was getting a great memory of Oliver, showing that they were about to be in love, showing they were in love, showing the good times, but it also crashed on the bad times of how dead friends, people morally wounded. It was just always hell for her. And after that, she pushed Cisco's hand away and said, in either timeline, I'm still in hell. Switching back to Wally, because of the Flash's overall importance in this whole war, he can simply just run to the police station and get in contact with anybody he needs. So, Wally West came into the police station to get in contact with Iris. Now, he's directed to Iris in the boardroom. Now, Iris immediately leaves out of a meeting to go talk to Wally. Now, she tells him how they just took down a big shark and the eye trick guy. That was the guy with the red eyes who can control people's emotion. Yeah, they're dead. Now, she asks Wally what's wrong. Wally tries to play it off, but you know how the CW gave her powers of perception beyond human or aliens. So, Wally tells Iris about the timeline changing. She worries that he's suffering from a mental illness from his speed because that family, other than Barry, are fucking idiots when it comes to science. Now, he tells her to believe him. Now, she just looks confused. She smiles and says that I think you need to take a load off. Wally gets up, takes his mask off, turns around in a very angry fashion. Now, Iris also asks about Barry. Wally questions as to why she asked about him. Now, Iris says that she hasn't seen him in a while and wants to make sure he's okay. Wally says that he has seen Barry around, but he doesn't pay that much attention to him. Now, Iris just plays it off as the whole big brother trying to look out for sister, sister's crush and everything. He's trying to keep her away from him. Now, Wally says not to trust him, and that falls under the line of, big brother just being overprotective. She says why. He says that you wouldn't believe me, and she says, right, okay, I'll be at work. She kisses her brother on the cheek and leaves. Back at Star City, Thea helps Diggle to his apartment. The two joke about how it used to be the other way around. Diggle joined the anti-meta division at Argus. His skills far exceeded hers, and in missions, she used to be the one getting hurt the worst. Diggle jokes saying that he's not hurt at all, nearly falling, and Thea manages to catch him, holding him up against the wall in kind of a way that can be perceived as kind of a hint to a Thea slash Diggle in the series. Now, They look into each other's eyes, and Diggle opens the door, using his hand behind him. Thea says, "Wow, this is the first time I've actually been to your place in years." Diggle says, "Yeah, my mansion in the sky. Sorry it's not like the Queen's." Thea looks sad at the comment, saying that with all the money and material things, she never felt love from her parents. Even before her mother divorced Robert, Thea was always seen as second best compared to Oliver. After Oliver's death, it just got so much worse. Now, Thea's mom is gone. Robert used to always say that why couldn't it have been Thea instead of Oliver? It used to kill Thea every time he said it to her. Now, Diggle holds her hand and sits next to her. She smiles and she says that I've only felt like I belonged when I was with you. Diggle says that after everything he's lost, he couldn't bear to lose her most of all. He says, "You're the most important person to me in the world." They both look at each other and kiss. Thea is on top of Diggle on the couch making out when she stops blushing and runs out of the room. Diggle looks confused and laughs at her, saying that she's just like a teenager. Thea slowly opens the door, stares at Diggle, and says, "I'll see you tomorrow," blushing, and runs out. Next scene in the unknown location, Harley and Laurel are actually walking to the HQ of Troth, the technological revolution of humanity. Now, this group's goal is to fight to end the meta-human civil war. Unlike the other powers who want to harness the meta's powers, Troth's goal is to take down the metas and the powers wanting to control the meta. That includes higher up governments, important people with big pockets, and Argus. Now, in order for you to actually have a rebel base like this, you have to have a leader who not only can perceive events, but actually know when the events are coming. Yes, people, Rip Hunter is back! Yes, the leader of Troth is Rip Hunter. Rip managed to save his family from Vandal Savage, but this timeline is the only one where he can go to where his family will not get killed over and over. So now he fights to make this place a better world for everybody here, including his family. Now, Rip and his top lieutenants, aka Hartley and Laurel. Now, he talks to them about a mission control where metahumans have taken humans for sale on the sex trade. They go to the location to run into a metahuman who can control the weather. They find the Clyde and they also see an unknown female partner. As they move in closer, the partner actually sees them. Now, this woman is highly known in the sex trade market. Now, Laurel actually makes a comment about how she looks like a clown. She smiles and throws a knife directly at Laurel, nearly cutting her damn vocal cords. Now, Hartley actually goes to try to help her when Clyde blows Canary and Hartley away with a big gust of wind, sending Laurel flying and Hartley lying on the ground. Hartley activates his gauntlets to send a shockwave to Clyde. Now, the shockwave causes Clyde to become a vegetable-like state. It basically stops messages being sent to and from the brain. Hartley, taking a quick breath, looks around to make sure Laurel is okay when out of nowhere he gets smacked in the face by a metal bat. Harley Quinn throws it right at him. Now, you see Laurel actually getting up and throwing an electrical ball at Harley, but Harley Quinn jumps out the way with her amazing athleticism and dodges it. Now, Laurel gets up to fight Harley one-on-one, but gets smashed into the car door by Harley's kicks. Now, without Neza, there's no assassin trading that Laurel can take, so she cannot take on Harley Quinn. Now, Harley Quinn punches Laurel several times until Laurel coughs up blood. Laurel hits Quinn with her baton, sending Quinn actually stumbling back a bit, breaking her nose. Now, Quinn starts to claw at Laurel's eyes until Hartley wakes up, hits Quinn with a blast so powerful it sends her flying, breaking her neck on the windowsill. Now, Hartley checks on Laurel as the building explodes. They smile at each other. They see Robert using his arrow to run off. Now, Robert actually lands on the ground and runs into three different metas. He runs into a lizard one, he runs into Jeremy Tail, and he runs into Swana Base. Now, they stop and tell Robert that the higher-ups have been wanting to meet him again. Now, Robert says that you'll have to tell that cold-hearted bitch to go to hell. He throws a mini arrow and nearly misses Swana. Now, the lizard charges at Robert only to be stopped by an electrical arrow to the neck. Lizard falls down, Swanna teleports back over to Tail, comes up with a plan with Tail, letting him know that she will distract him and all Tail has to do is hit him with those cards. Now, the plan actually works with Tail landing 5 hits, but not enough for major blood loss. Robert waits, and as soon as Swanna teleports again, he sticks an arrow through her eye. Now, the thing is, she always teleported behind him, so he predicted where she would teleport next. She falls. Tails tries to take Robert, even wounded. Robert was still able to outmaneuver Tail and throw a mini arrow in his heart. He looks at the lizard, and the lizard takes out the arrow and begins to charge at Robert again. The lizard dodges the second arrow that Robert shoots at him. Robert is hit with enough force to send him flying upward 9 feet. The lizard grabs him, and when he does, Robert hits him in the arm with a hidden knife. The lizard drops him, and Robert turns and sticks the electrical arrow into the creature's stomach. Robert notices the cuts were healing around the arrow and around the arm. Now, he contacted the Queen's guards to come because now Robert Queen has a new metahuman power that he has to experiment with. Hartley and Laurel watch this. Meanwhile, in an unknown location, you can see the Black Flash walking to an unknown field, and an opening appears in the sky. A voice talks to him, asking why is the Flash not here. The Black Flash explains that it's going to take time to gain the individual known as Barry. Now, Black Flash also explains how the people around him have becoming a bit of a problem. Now, the person talking to him is the Speed Force. The Speed Force says, I see into that dark heart of yours. You want nothing but revenge against Barry. The Speed Force warns the Black Flash that he is not allowed to kill him, only to bring him to the Speed Force. Black Flash explains that he's using Wally in order to gain access to Barry. All he has to do is wait, and he has plenty of time. Now the portal closes. Black Flash takes off his mask at a nearby lake and remembers how he used to look, and he also remembers a faint name, Caitlin. Now, back at the Arrow Cave, Barry asks Hartley about code names. He explains that those are letters of this metahuman war. No one has seen them, or they have, but they haven't just made the connection. There's been a few fire metas, but no ice ones, and the one named Grodd is a mystery. Barry says the name sounds familiar, but for some reason he can't remember much of it at the moment. Now, if you guys remember, he's suffering from the same time problem as Ray and Kendra when they were abandoned in, I believe it was 1950. Being in that time, you forget about the time you are from, but the team doesn't know that yet. Same thing happened with Laurel when she was left in that time period for the League of Assassins. She completely forgot everybody. Now, the Arrow Cave is getting real quiet until Cisco yells. Everyone runs over. Everyone, I mean Felicity and Barry. Thea and Diggle are still away from the Arrow Cave. Now, he explains that he needs more of the sample to generate anything to use against Wally runs in. Cisco says that I'm used to that being you, Barry. Cisco says that he needs more of this sample. The whole body will be perfect, even if it's smashed. Wally says that it's in a cryo lockup at the task force. He'll use Iris to get it. Barry says, how is she? Wally angrily asks, why do you want to know? Barry backs up and Wally says that he'll get it, runs off, and Cisco says, that guy really does not like you. Barry says, yeah, I figured. Wally races off to see his sister, still having a plan in mind to give Barry over to the Black Flag. With Wally racing off to see Iris, he runs into the police station. He gets there and runs into Eddie, chief of police. Eddie tells him that Iris is on a case, going to a supposed tip on a warehouse metas are using to sell children and torture high-ranking officers of the resistance and military officials. Now, Wally races off to look for Iris. Meanwhile, Iris is in the car with her partner Patty. Now, they are just looking for this tip while Patty starts up a conversation. Now, Patty and Iris talked about how this war has taken enough from them, and why can't the Flash just round them up all and be done, Patty says. Iris says it's not that simple. Patty rebuttals saying that if I had powers, I would be able to do it. Patty says they were just in the right place at the right time. Iris looks out the window with a sad expression when she notices something flying towards them. Now, this object hits the car, sending it over into a wall, extremely hurting Patty's shoulder and giving Iris a bloody head. Iris crawls out of the car to see two flying people staring down at her. They land, It's Kendra and Carter. Patty stretches out the car and starts shooting. Carter flies off. Kendra goes after Iris. Iris tries to pull out her gun, but instead is slashed in the left breast by Kendra. Now, Iris lays there bleeding with her chest completely split open, but not enough to mortally wound her, but it is a bloody bath. Carter's flying around, dodging Patty's bullets, when he comes down and sends Patty flying on a nearby car, then knocking her out. Now, Carter is about to deliver the finishing blow when he is stopped by Wally, running and kicking Carter, sending him flying into a brick wall, breaking his wing. Kendra screams, "Carter!" and goes flying towards him. Wally runs to Iris to check on her. Iris says that she's doing alright, but check and see how Patty is doing. Wally says, "You're clearly bloody." She says to check on Patty. He runs and grabs Patty to bring her over to where Iris is sitting. Kendra, with a worried look on her face, flies over to Carter. She asks if he's alright. He responds saying that he's been better. Backup arrives, and the Anti-Mutant Human Task Force starts firing on Kendra and Carter, telling them to freeze. They try to fight back, but Carter gets shot in the leg. Kendra gets shot in the arm, and then they comply. The task force arrests them. They start to walk into the police van when out of nowhere a fireball shoots and incinerates Carter. Kendra screams, and then a voice says, "You guys are just as useless in this life as all the others." No wonder you couldn't kill him. Kendra looks to see and screams, "Firestarter." But he says, "My name's Firestorm." He shoots a fireball and Wally runs to pull all of them out of the area before the fireball hits the ground. While the Flash is running, he notices an ice beam coming towards him. He manages to dodge it. He looks up and he sees Killer Frost standing. Now she makes an ice wall in the alley to block the Flash's way to get her. As he's trying to get through, he hears screams, turns around. Firestorm has a child and a mother. Firestorm demands that he stay still, and Wally complies. Frost freezes his feet. Once that happens, Firestorm smiles and burns the mother and daughter alive. Wally screams, "No!" and vibrates to break the ice. He runs for Firestorm, dodging the fire blast being thrown towards him. Wally, wanting to get a height advantage on Firestorm, begins running up buildings. Firestorm gets what he's trying to do and starts destroying the buildings. Then he figures out, let me destroy where he's actually going. He destroys a big section of the building, making Wally fall, hitting the ground. Firestorm is about to finish Wally off with a big fire blast when Kendra hits Firestorm with the mace, sending him flying out the air. Firestorm gets up angrily and fires a ball at Kendra. Now Wally manages to run past the fireball and grab Kendra, pulling her out the way. Killer Frost, hiding in the shadow, sees the opportunity to kill Iris and Patty. She throws an icicle at them. Wally manages to see that in no time, runs over, grabs the icicle, and sticks it into Killer Frost's ribcage, making her cough up blood. Firestorm immediately shoots fire at Wally, completely going crazy as he goes over to Killer Frost. Now, he grabs her in his arm as she's in pain and looks at Wally and says this isn't over, and Wally says, "Yeah, I bet it's not." Firestorm flies off with Killer Frost in his arms. Wally looks down at the tag he got from Killer Frost once he stabbed her. It said IQ. He remembers the tag on Firestorm when he ran by saying FS, and because of Kendra he now knows that means Firestorm or Firestarter. Back at the Queen's Enterprise, Vandal Savage is sitting at a dining hall with Queen and the leaders of the military divisions. They're having a pleasant conversation until Vandal Savage feels Carter's essence being drawn into him. Queen asks if anything is wrong, and Vandal Savage smiles, said it's nothing, nothing at all. The leaders discuss about Trough. Vandal Savage angrily said, "Where are they getting this technology?" One of the generals jokingly said that our scientists have been trying to mimic this. They've been trying to analyze it. They've even come up with prototypes, but those prototypes ended up blowing up in our faces. This technology is beyond our comprehension. It's almost like it's something from the future. Vandal Savage gets quiet. The general said that he might have said something wrong. Vandal Savage says, "No, actually, You might have said something right. Vandal Savage discussed how a mysterious visitor came to him 50 years ago and warned of a catastrophe coming. The stranger told him to get into a great position so he can lead the people out of this great catastrophe. Vandal Savage did not understand at the time, but he did comply, and now look where he is. Now, he said that it could be time travel. Amanda Waller laughs, everybody else laughs. Vandal Savage says he's serious. And then Amanda Waller says that you've been around for thousands of years and time travel is what you have to come up with. He says, yes, time travel. It's impossible, like immortality. The room gets quiet. He says, next time we catch not just the weapons, but keep the person alive as well, even if he's not willing to cooperate. I do have some scientists that can manipulate his brainstem and cause him to still use the weapon to our advantage. Now, back at the Arrow Cave, Cisco detects minor traces of the Speed Force in Barry and relayed electric stimulation to get his powers back. It only hurt Barry. Felicity's upstairs. Thea walks in and goes completely nuts on Cisco and Barry for trying that. And then Barry explains that that's the only way to get his powers back, but Thea says that this can kill you. So Cisco said, okay, look, I'm not trying to mess with the lady. He drops the electric inducers. Everyone gets quiet and looks at each other for a sec when Diggle walks in. Thea looks around and starts smiling. Now Cisco and Barry look at each other and then they look at Thea. They kind of figure something's going on. Diggle says, how is everybody doing? And he looked at Barry and he asked what was going on. Thea told him. He goes completely crazy on them too. And Cisco said, wow, parents, round two. And then Barry just starts laughing. And Diggle says it's not funny. And of course Thea goes right back and says it's not funny as well. Now, Thea talks to Diggle saying that can we talk for a minute, and then they walk out. And then Cisco looks at Barry and says, do you think that there's something going on? And then Barry's like, yeah, I kind of do think it. They laugh. Now, Barry contacts Wally to see where he's at. Wally says that he is on the case, but Iris did get hurt. After hearing that, Barry gets up and runs to his car to go see Iris. When Cisco screams for him to come back immediately, he screams for everybody. Now, on the monitor, it says, breaking news, hospital fire in Central City. Barry looks horrified. Now, on the hospital, it has flames written in it. It says, Barry, come out to play. Everyone looks at Barry. Barry's angry and begins to run back towards the car. Cisco and everyone else break in order to figure out what was this. And Cisco said it's the Black Flash. And then Felicity said, how can you be so sure? Cisco said, believe me, I'm sure. Barry and Wally, as they see fire from different locations. Wally runs off in an angry fashion to the Black Flash's location. Barry at the Arrow Cave is angry at how powerless he is. Harley walks up to him, puts his hand on his shoulder and says, that's how people feel all the time. Now that's why we're here. We can't give up. Our hope is in you. You're the only one that can fix this. Barry understands and then states that he says that his anger is just directed at not the fact that he's powerless, but the fact that Zoom, and Cisco interrupts and says Black Flash. Barry says Black Flash is now just about to take away Iris and Patty. I won't be able to deal with losing the ones I love. Harley says that now someone knows how I feel and walks out. Laurel walks out running after him. Thea says looks like this is going to be tougher on most than others. Harley walks out crying on the side. Laurel reaches down and hugs him. Laurel and Harley are dealing with the fact that they are fighting for them to never love. Laurel says it's hard on her as well, but they can't give up. We have a world to fight for, and it's more than just us at stake, Laurel says. Harley says you're the only one that matters. They kiss. Felicity is in the background. She hears this and just completely bawls out and cries. Wally races to the city to meet the Black Flash. He finds him sitting staring at a pond. Wally approaches the Black Flash with an angry look. Black Flash looks around and says, is there something wrong? Wally starts screaming, why the hell did you set a building on fire that my sister is in? Black Flash says that it wasn't to kill Iris, but to get Barry's attention. Now, Wally said that Barry already has Black Flash's attention. The plan is for Barry, not Iris. Iris is not supposed to be hurt. Before he could finish, Black Flash runs and grabs his throat and slams him on the ground and says, you misunderstand. You don't make the demands. I make the rules. As long as you follow them, you and Iris will be saved. If not, you're going to watch her die first. Black Flash picks Wally up and throws him into the wall and turns around and begins to gaze at the sky. Wally gets up and runs away. As Black Flash is gazing to the sky, he gets a telepathic communication. It's a voice. He at first thinks it's the Speed Force, but finds it's different. The being says your heart is just as dark as mine. You don't care about anything, only destruction and revenge. The Black Flash says yes. The voice looks into Black Flash's mind and sees what he wants. The Black Flash is bound to the Speed Force only in that form, the voice tells him. Black Flash questions on what does he mean, and the voice says, the force that controls you is blocking me. I shall return once I am able to block her again. The voice slowly dissipates. Black Flash kneels down and looks back at the pond and once again says, Caitlin. Wally West is now once again in the city running around trying to take his anger out on somebody. Now, he sees a group of metas destroying a building. Wally goes over and kills all the metas in a rage. Seen by the civilians, he runs off, leaving a bloody trail behind him. Iris and Patty are recovering as they are visited by Eddie and the other cops. Wally walks into the place and everyone greets him. And they say, where have you been? Your sister has been in the hospital. He says that he's been busy and got caught up. One cop kept giving him hell, and Wally jumped up and got in the cop's face. The confrontation is stopped by Wally after he's asked to leave. Iris frowns, and Patty says if I had a brother, I would want him to care that much. Everyone laughs. Wally walks down to the lobby where he's seen Barry walking in. Wally says to Barry, what are you doing here? Barry says to see Iris. Wally says you're not welcome. Barry questions why he is not welcome there. Wally says it's none of your business, leaves. Barry pushes Wally saying that he's had enough of being treated like this. Wally runs and pushes Barry and saying it's all your fault. Barry screams, I'm trying to fix it. Wally says, fix? You think that you can just put back together and that's it? No, you're paying for what you did now. Wally punches Barry, busting his lip and sending him back a couple of steps. Barry in turn jabs Wally in the nose, breaking his nose. The two begin to fight. The hospital staff tried to break it up, but instead, Eddie breaks them up. Eddie says what happens, Wally just shrugs, and then Barry says that he just attacked me, and the staff confirmed it. Eddie tells Wally to leave before he arrests him, and Wally walks out. Now, Eddie asks Barry, is he alright? Eddie remembers Barry from when Joe and Iris let them stay. Well, they let Eddie stay with them for a few years because the Metas killed his parents before he got back on his feet and went into another family. Barry is taken to Iris by Eddie. Barry sits down next to Iris and asks what happened. Iris says those Metas always causing problems for the city, always disrupting humanity. And Barry says it's not all Metas, and then Iris gets angry and says that, to be honest with you, I can't tell Wally this, but I hate metas. Metas are the reason that the world is turning to hell. Metas are the cause of all the world's evil. If we want to survive, we have to kill the metas. And that's why I became a cop. I will always fight. The metas had their foot on humanity, and it was time to fight back. Barry looks down in sadness, but then Iris puts his head up with her hand and says that, but Barry, you have been the only good thing in my life since I was growing up. You and Wally used to be so close, but now it's different. Please, don't you and Wally fall apart. You're the only family I have left. Barry grabs her hand and looks in her eyes and says that I will never let anyone he cares get away, ever again. Iris and Barry kiss. Wally runs back as a flash and sees this while standing in the distance from the door where he could not be noticed. Plus, he's going super fast at the time, so he's seeing this. Wally runs off in more anger in his heart. Back at the lab, Diggle and Thea are talking about what happened the other day. Diggle says, sure. So, when are we going to go on a date? Now, Thea turns around just blushing red and says that wherever is best and is safe. Diggle laughs saying that he knows the place. He takes Thea to the Queen's nightclub and they party, talking about the old days more. And Thea wonders, what were they like in the other future? The club goes silent as news comes on. Breaking. Metahuman targeting plane. It's Firestorm. He's going toward and shooting fireballs at a nearby plane hovering over the city. Now he manages to destroy one of the rotors on the plane as well as the back wing. Now the plane falls into the apartment complex, killing 500. A plane wing came into the nightclub and sliced 70 people. It was a bloody mess. Thea and Diggle rush down to see if there's anything they can do. They look to the sky and sees Firestorm, and he smiles at them and flies back up. Now Firestorm talks on the radio saying Phase 1 commencing, and a voice says, "Good, Phase 2 can commence." Thea and Diggle are trying to save as many people as they can. Now they even go to change into their Arrow outfits to come back to try to calm down the chaos. Now the police are actually working with Team Arrow on this particular case. Usually they don't have too much in common, but particularly now they need all the help they can get. While they're talking, Felicity contacts Diggle to see what is the situation downtown. Diggle informs her about the plane and she says she's already seen it on the news and everybody else is on their way back to the Arrow Cave. She says what could be the cause of Firestorm to do this. Diggle remembers his Argus days and says this is a military tactic. She said, "Excuse me?" He said that plane was not just randomly targeted. This is all for a purpose, for the Human Eradication Force. And then Thea walks over and says, "Diggle, what's going on?" Diggle pulls Thea into a nearby alley and tells her about the Human Eradication Force and how that might be the cause of it. Thea says they should inform the police. Diggle says it's not a good idea because then it will even worsen meta and human relations. We can't let them know that this is the Human Eradication Force. We can't even let them know that there's a group of metas that are attacking humanity. Right now, the whole public thinks that it's just random mutants doing this, but in actuality, it is a group organized terrorist organization. If the public finds that out, it will cause mass chaos. They both agree to keep quiet and walk back to the police chief. As they walk out the alley, the police question Diggle and Thea, asking them what do they know and why did they just go into that alley. Diggle says that it's none of their business and we already told you everything we know. We did not know this was going to happen. We were just in the right location at the right time. And then the cops say, "Yeah, sure, you know that if you're hiding anything from us, that mask won't protect you." Now Diggle actually gets into the cop's face and Thea breaks it up and says that, "Look, we are just getting hot-headed over this." Now the chaos is getting even worse because now it's like the police and vigilantes are fighting. Now who the hell is going to defend us? So now because of this, the chaos got even worse. Team Arrow in the Arrow Cave looking at the news about the incident that happened in the previous episode. Thea says with a sad expression they were right there and Diggle hugs her to calm her down. The team stares at the TV as Wally walks over to Barry and asks Barry, "Can I talk to you for a second?" Now Barry follows Wally outside the base. Barry says, "What now, Wally?" Wally says, "I saw you kissing her." Barry rolls his eyes and says, "So what?" Wally looks at him with a mean look and says, "I wonder how my little sister will feel if she knew the guy she liked was behind our father's killing." In a burst of anger, Barry says, "I was not behind it. I didn't know what happened. That meta killed your father, not me." Wally says, "But you caused it by saving yours. I wonder what would happen if she found out." Barry and Wally have a stare off as Cisco yells for them to come inside. On the TV, the president is talking about the previous attack and saying that Amanda Waller and two other members of humanity's defense military are dead. This was not a random attack, but a planned attack from the metas on humanity. As such, I have just declared the Meta-Human Relocation Act, which will take all metas and put them in an area where they can be controlled and monitored. The president also announces how Harrison Wells will be head of the division from now on, and how he has developed meta-human detecting watches for everyone. If one goes off, your local meta-human task force will get an alert. Any meta-human found must be captured. Meta-humans are to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. We recognize the Flash and other government metas as protectors. We will give them our full support in the matter. Laurel looks in horror. Barry wonders what's the problem. Now we can see who's a meta and who's not. Hartley says that's the problem. Laurel says that there are 300 known metas in the city right now, but only 75 of them are in the war. With this new law in place, all those hundreds of metas who are living peacefully alongside humanity will now fight back instead of being put in a camp. The team realizes this is the first step in the final battle between the metas and the humans. Harley tells Laurel about contacting the agency about this. The metas are stepping up the game to rid humanity of its head leaders. Next will be Trough and other innocent metas who will be caught in the crossfire. We have to step our plans up. Cisco asks, what does he mean by that? Harley explains that they might know where the main HQ of the meta revolutionaries. The forces they had were 75, but with this it will increase more than our numbers can handle. Harley says Trough has 300 members in his army. But with metas, one meta could equal 5 of our soldiers. Laurel talks about the time 60 members of Trough went to investigate a set of metas, and it was bloodshed. One meta jumped down and decapitated 3 of our members in an instant. The others were just completely driving our forces back. It was a continual bloodshed, and we almost didn't make it out of there alive. Thea says, are they that strong? I mean, I've never seen one, well, the Flash, but he's good. Barry says, there are metas with powers so horrifying you'll lose sleep. Meanwhile, in a secret government facility, Vandal Savage is meeting with the League of Assassins, who in this timeline are the government-funded group. Vandal Savage tells them it's time for them to go full action. Kill any metahuman or Trough you come across. They disband. Robert walks up and gives Vandal Savage the schematics to the Atom suit. Vandal Savage looks at the parts and looks at Robert and tells him that it's going to require a heavily skilled individual to actually use the suit. Vandal Savage recommends Robert for the task. Robert questions why Vandal Savage would even recommend him for such a thing. Vandal said, because you bring presents. Robert smiles and a team of people are dragging the lizard into the area where Vandal Savage is. Vandal looks at this specimen and says, I had my guys look at this guy. He's very impressive. Robert says this meta has increased capabilities of healing its skin, and he thinks that it could be used for us against the metas. Vandal Savage smiles and says, yes, this will be perfect. Vandal Savage scientists begin to take the meta into a room and start experimenting on him, breaking down every single cell so they know how he ticks. All the screaming from the lizard causes Robert and Vandal Savage to leave the room because they could not talk anymore. He asks Robert to give the plans to a different department so they can begin work. Robert walks out and looks at the plans and studies them as he's going to the department. He sees a way to enhance it with the meta's blood he caught. He tells the scientists to inform him of the progress and leaves out. He goes and watches while the men lock down the lizard in the lab with only Roberts and a few others can access. Thea and Diggle are out on their first date when the gang tries to surround them. They smile and just start beating the guys. Thea flips one into the car. Diggle bashes one guy's head into the ground. A guy jumps on Diggle's back trying to choke him out. Diggle grabs a guy and slams him into the nearby car. Thea runs up and kicks a guy in the nuts and roundhouse kicks another guy, beating the men. The two link arms and both say these are our dates now and laugh. They walk off as the guys lay there bleeding. Now they arrive in a cafe. Because of that fight, it made them thirsty, Thea says. Felicity calls them because she hacked into Argus files and sees a Vandal Savage in the database. Thea and Diggle both wonder who this man is and why he had been seen with Robert. Now he's in Argus files. Thea asks Diggle, did you know anything about him when you were talking to your father? Now Thea questions and says, no, I wouldn't have been able to get any closer information on him because of my father's distrust for me. Diggle says that he's never heard of this guy, and it's surprising seeing how Diggle is one of the best agents. He usually gets all the classifications. Now, Thea says this guy just didn't pop up. She tells Felicity to search for an address, and Felicity finds one, and Diggle and Thea are off. Wally, running back to the city, sees a metahuman named Tremor trying to topple buildings. He runs to confront the meta, and Tremor calls him a traitor for not being on their side. Wally laughs and runs around and punches Tremor, saying that how can I be a traitor? I was never on your side. He battles Tremors, running in a circle, punching him. Tremor shakes up and makes a piece of the building fall. Wally runs and saves people below before the building parts crash and kills them. As Wally is dodging Tremor's attacks, he looks up into a building and sees there are people in the building where Tremor is shaken. Tremor says that it's them or him. Flash. And he begins to topple the building. Wally runs in as Tremor shakes and topples the building and manages to save 2 people out of the hundreds in the building. Tremor is gone when the dust clears. The media starts blaming the Flash, saying that he could have saved them. Fastest man alive? My ass. Some hero saved a few instead of the majority. Wally breathes heavily and runs, and Tremor laughs and says phase 2 is commencing on mic. A voice answers, Roger. Harley and Laurel arrive back at the cave, healed up after taking a week of rest from their previous battle. As they walk in, they see Felicity crying. They question what is wrong. Felicity points to the TV as they show what happened with Wally. Harley and Laurel look in horror as this metahuman kills all these people and the Flash is not able to save them. Now, Harley and Laurel both feel saddened for the Flash, and they say that the next time they see Wally, they'll talk to him. Felicity says, I haven't been even able to get in contact with him. And then Harley questions, well, where's Barry? And then Felicity says he's with Cisco at a nightclub for a little R&R. And Laurel says, I don't think this is really the time for that. And Harley says, maybe we need a little R&R as well. Laurel says, we were just healing up. I think we had enough R&R, and she walks off. And then Harley laughs and says, don't worry, Felicity, it'll be alright, and follows Laurel into the distance. Now, at the nightclub, Barry and Cisco are talking about the other universe and says, you're the only one I can talk to about this. Cisco laughs and they begin talking about how Cisco misses Kendra and how he wishes that he could see her again. Barry says he loved Iris and he's hoping that he can see her again, unless Wally has a problem. Cisco says, was Wally such a dick before? They both remember and they both say, nah. Wally is running back to his apartment with a burning image in his mind of the public's hatred towards him. After everything I've done, they have freaking hatred against me? They've forgotten how many people I saved? It keeps ringing in his mind. Failure. The fastest man in the world couldn't even save kids. We're better off if you would have died. He runs into an alley and pulls off his mask and screams and falls to his knees in anger. The Black Flash approaches him and says, why so tense? You should relax. Wally says nothing. Black Flash answered, you're still thinking on how they turned on you. They did the same to Barry in his time. He jumps up and says, don't mention that name to me. Black Flash says, Wally, you haven't changed. Still with that running ahead attitude. And then Flash says, how did you know my name? Black Flash says, I knew you in the other timeline as well. Wally looks and he says, I'm taking Barry something that can possibly get his speed back. Or something. Black Flash questions and when Wally responds, Black Flash says, I'm clueless about what can be done using this meta's body. And just dismisses the whole idea. And he also tells Wally they've turned their back on you. Now you must live for yourself. And Black Flash runs off with Wally getting a call from Iris, letting him know that she's at the Arrow Cave with Power Outage's body. And she says, where is he? Wally says, I'm out, and hangs up. Iris is shocked at Wally's reaction, but she's also saddened by him. She wants to make sure that he's okay. Harley and Laura get a call and have to leave the cave. They get a transmission from Rip saying that we have a problem. Rupture is now spying on the now officially named HEF, the Human Extermination Force. Before, they really didn't have an idea on the name, but now they officially know what they're called. Rupture says that since the Metahuman Relocation Act, the group has gained another 50 applicants, which makes now their number at 125. That means that out of that, only 175 metas are not in the Human Eradication Force. Harley and Laurel look at each other. Laurel says, with that many people, with the leader who we still don't know can launch an attack on the city. Rip says, I believe his plans are to get close to the 300 known metas throughout the city. With all the recent killings and new findings of metas, the number 300 still holds up. Once he gets to 250, the world will end. Harley says they are part of Team Arrow and they wish to bring him on board to Trough. Rip says, can they be trusted? Now Harley says yes, they have all been valuable assets. Rip says that he will consider it and be in touch. Minute later, Rip gets a call from his best assassin, Neza, and she reports riots outside the meta containment camps. She says it's horrible with electric fences and live rounds being fired to cripple certain metas. Chaos is breaking out into the street because of the friends, neighbors, loved ones, and colleagues of the metas that are being locked up. Members of activist groups start shooting at the police and the metahuman containment force, the guys who are guarding the metahuman camp. Now, one of the guys actually decides to ram a truck into the fencing, releasing 5 metas, each very dangerous, and the metas use their powers to kill the cops, and now the regular people are joining their friendly metas in a new group called EOD. I heard them preaching it. Rip says, what does that mean? Neza says, equality or death. With Thea and Diggle walking to the Queen's Bank. Thea and Diggle are holding hands as she asks, what's in there that's so important? Diggle says he gets a check from Argus. Thea says, I thought you quit, interrupting Diggle. Diggle says that he did quit, but at the level of agent he was, they make sure that he gets a pension and he has a more comfortable life, even though Diggle jokes saying that he got paid way more when he was actually an Argus agent. Now, the both of them walk into the bank, and Thea says, with a pension, couldn't you buy a house? Diggle laughs and says, equipment isn't cheap, he says. Thea says, yeah, I've actually been taking the watches off of the guys we bust and other type of jewelries. You know, taking the good off of criminals, you know, for the good of the heroes. Diggle looks at her and she said, come on. She says, come on, you know Robert did not give me anything after he kicked me out, and I don't have a pension unlike some people. And then Diggle and Thea laugh, waiting in line. Diggle thinks and says, hey, do you remember your father's pen? Thea looks up and says, there's no way he could possibly have kept it the same after all these years. And then Diggle looks at her and says, wait, you know? Thea says, I have a long shot, but I'm pretty sure he's changed it. Diggle says, let's find out. And then a voice in the background says, I agree, there is nothing to lose. Diggle and Thea look back. Diggle jumps in front of Thea and tells the guy in the hood, I think you need to mind your own business, buddy. He smiles, and then out of nowhere, another guy in the road pulls out an AK-47 and shoots into the air and says this is a robbery. The two security guards begin to pull their guns when his partner shoots the other guard and says, you heard the man, this is a robbery. Another man gets up in the office behind the telestation, pulls out a shotgun, and kills the secretary. The man then takes the guy in the front desk to the back for the combination to the safe and the keys to the deposit boxes. Thea and Diggle look around at what's happening. Diggle turns back to look at the robed man, and there is a revolver in Diggle's face. Now, Diggle is struck with the revolver and falls to the ground. Now, the man started to grab Thea, but she kicked the gun out of his hand, but was grazed by the bullet from the AK-47 from the other man. She fell, and one of the robed men grabs her and says she's the queen's brat, and she knows the combination to the safe. Now, the masked man grabs her, puts a gun to her head, and starts taking her into the back. Now, Diggle looks over and sees the revolver Thea kicked out one of the robber's hands. He grabs the revolver. One of the road men with the AK sees it and tells the other to scatter. Now, Thea is taken in the back by one of the road men with the shotgun. The one with the AK and the one that pretended to be a police officer is still sitting there shooting at Diggle. Now, Diggle, trying to conserve ammo, waits for the right opportunity, gets up and shoots the security guard one. As the security one falls, he disappears. Diggle notices this. The one with the AK-47 starts laying in more heavily on Diggle's location, not even giving Diggle a chance to breathe. Now, Thea manages to kick one of the guys in the nuts, and he falls. She runs to the back to help the desk clerk. She runs and sees the robed man and the desk clerk talking. Now, the robed man pulls down his hood, and Thea is in shock because he looks exactly as the man who is the desk clerk and the security officer as well. Thea is hit over the head and the robed man is behind her. He gazes upon her body and then he grabs her shirt and tears it off. Now, he starts to go for her pants, getting only half of her butt out of the jeans when the other clones tell him to stop. Now, he looks up at the other two and begins arguing with them. Now, the clerk touches the robber who's trying to rape Thea and the robber disappears. Now, Thea sees this and he says, looks like I don't have much control as I thought. The clerk looks at the clone and says, go and help the other clone because I sense that he's having a little bit of problem with that one guy. The clone runs back into the gunfight. Thea is still pretending to be unconscious, waiting for her time to strike. Diggle is pinned down by gunfire as a blast comes in and hits the clone, who's shooting the AK and sends him flying back. Now, the robed man disappears. Diggle looks up and sees that it's an unknown person. Diggle immediately points his gun at the man, but the man says, I wouldn't do that, Diggle. Diggle questions, how do you know me? And then the man answers, all Trough members know each other. Diggle says, so I'm Trough now, huh? And Diggle questions, well, who are you then? And then the man answers, I am Rupture, one of the leading members in Trough. I was walking by and it looked like you needed help. Diggle says, no time for that. We have to get to the back. Diggle is interrupted with the clone coming back with a shotgun, laying shells into Diggle and Rupture. Diggle jumps behind cover and yells, I'm out. Rupture is hiding behind the stone wall. Now Diggle is getting laid into. Rupture then rips open the wall with his scythe and tears the other clone in half. Now the clerk feels this and turns around. Thea looks up at him as the man says, nobody fucks with Hef, and nobody damn sure fucks with Multiplex. And 9 more clones are created to run and kill Diggle and Rupture. Diggle looks up as he sees 9 more clones running their way. Diggle and Rupture fight the clone army. Diggle knocking out 2, Rupture killing 5. One grabbed a gun and shot Rupture, but hit the scythe, and Diggle tackles the one with the gun, while a random man tries to be a hero and runs and attacks one of the rogue guys. Now the man manages to knock out one of the clones and he disappears, and Diggle manages to kill the last clone and runs for Thea. Rupture follows. Thea waits for Multiplex to get closer and grabs his leg. Multiplex kicks Thea and knocks her unconscious. Multiplex says that, I'm almost done. I'm almost finished, but it seems like people just must fucking interfere. Diggle goes for Thea when Multiplex grabs her and puts her knife to her neck. Diggle then stops begging Multiplex not to kill her. The random man sneaks behind Multiplex. He jumps and pushes Thea out the way, knocking down Multiplex. Diggle runs for Multiplex, but before he can get close, more clones start to come. Thea wakes up to see the horrifying army. Now they all huddle in a circle for protection. And Diggle asks the random man, who are you? Everyone looks. The guy says, I don't know if I can say my name in front of the meta, but you can call me Wildcat. Meanwhile, Hartley and Laurel are sitting in a car driving to an unknown location. Laurel says, so when are we going to do it? Hartley says, I thought we did last night. Laurel rolls her eyes and said, I mean bring Team Arrow to Trough. Hartley says, you know, Rip, and he's not the most trusting man. She laughs and said, yeah, remember when he monitored me for a week because he thought that I had powers, but I was just using my device to hide the fact that I had powers? Remember when he took the collar off right as I was aiming at something and the thing created a pulse wave so loud it blew out all the teacher's glasses and the windows in the building? Hartley laughs and says, you're right, we do need to bring them in, and looks at Laurel with puppy dog eyes and says, but will you call them for me? Laurel rolls her eyes and says, men, and then decides to call him. Hartley tells Laurel he loves her. Laurel says, I love you too. Gets the phone and calls Rip, and he answers and says, my 2 favorite couple, what can I do for you? And then she says, Cap, we have a surprise for you. He questions. She says, you know the Arrow team we've been documenting on? He says yes. She says, we would like to bring them in. Rip says, are they trustworthy? Hartley says yes. They've been putting their lives on the line and they are valuable comrades. Hunter says, because you're recommending them, I'll accept them. Laura and Hartley just smile, and then Rip says, hold on, I'm getting an emergency call. I'll patch both of you through. Now he three-ways the call between Rupture, Laurel, Hartley, and himself. Now Rupture reports he's with 3 civilians with a multiplying meta known as Multiplex. Rip orders a duo to the location. They hang up and they hurry. Thea's hurt badly. Diggle's unconscious. Wildcat's barely on his last legs. Rupture stands strong but tires and says, is that all you got? Multiplex is exhausted from unleashing 40 clones. Multiplex unleashes over 20 more clones. Wildcat collapses from the continual beatings. Then Rupture goes charging, cutting the heads off of 5. 2 kicking him to the ground, and 3 stomp him 5 times. He kicks and gets up and stabs one in the heart, and a throwing blade into another one. 6 run up and punches him. He falls back, and his weapon falls out. Now he's continually getting stomped in the neck, and he gets his arm broken. Now he gets kicked over to his weapon. He manages to lift the weapon up and shoots a bolt, which kills 4 of the clones and blinds 1. Out of nowhere, Laura and Hartley jump into the scene. Using an ultrasonic wave, they disable the clones. Laurel fights Multiplex as he creates 3 more clones. Laurel's advanced training enabled her to crack the neck of one of the clones, trip the other one, and then box the other one and take him down. Laurel is then knocked back by another clone. Wildcat runs up and says now he's fired up, and he takes on the main Multiplex. And he says, now that all these heroes are here, it's time for me to show what I got. Now he runs up and actually tries to take on one of the Multiplex and is stabbed by Multiplex. Diggle shoots him with a revolver in the leg. Rupture says, I thought you were out. Diggle says that he only had 1 bullet left and he had to make it count, and then falls back unconscious. Now, Diggle and Thea are laying unconscious as Wildcat is bleeding out. The trio, Hartley, Laurel, and Rupture, take the 3 to become new members of Trough. Back at the lab, Robert Queen is walking to his car when he gets a call from the lab. They say that they have great progress and needs him to come in. On the way there, him and his driver notice these mobs of people destroying houses, destroying shops. He even says that these are animals and I cannot wait to put them down. Robert's driver laughs. Now Robert arrives at the lab to meet the head scientist behind the division, Caitlin Snow. She takes him further into the lab and shows him the progress. Now, with the creature's blood, she says, we can create a serum that will constantly rejuvenate you. You can be able to move 5, 6 times the distance of the normal human without tiring, as well as any type of internal or external injuries can be healed in an instant using this creature's amazing blood. What it can't do is mend broken bones. So if that happens, the best it can do is heal the flesh, but the bone is still going to be broken. Robert sits there and takes notes. She says that the skin can actually be used as more of a hardened armor. She says that the skin right now, in its current state, cannot even be broken by blade. It has to be cut by laser. If we implement this into your suit can be 4 or 5 times harder than it already is, and it can also make the Dwarf Star alloy even more sustainable. Robert is intrigued by this and says, great job, Caitlin. Make sure to keep me informed by this and keep it just between us. Caitlin smiles and walks away. Now, Robert actually takes the reports and walks and calls his lab and says, I have something for you. Please stand by. Vandal Savage looks down, observing Robert as he leaves. Ra's al Ghul comes from the shadows saying that we have eliminated the problem in Cuba. And then Vandal says, great news, now those fucking traitors will never be able to supply weapons to Hef again. Savage says that, I'm glad that you were in my life, because without you guys, it would be a whole lot more difficult to take over the world. Ray says, I agree. I used to have ambitions of taking over the world myself, but now I'm just gonna leave this in your hands. I'll be your blade. The assassins will be your blade. And Vandal says, there is no sharper blade, my friend. Back at the Arrow Cave, Iris is on the phone talking to her boss about why Power Outrage's body has to stay outside for a little bit longer. Barry and Cisco are working on the body and Felicity is watching the news, monitoring it. Now, Iris hangs up and walks over to Cisco and says, I don't know how you can do that. Now, Cisco says, I used to want to be a doctor. And then she also adds that you might want to hurry up because we're going to have to get Power Outrage's body back pretty soon. Barry says, it has to be in a hurry. Iris says, you know how Eddie is, all procedure, no fun. Iris questions, well, why didn't you become one? Cisco says, have you seen the hours on their schedule? Iris laughs and shakes her head. Cisco yells. Iris says, what's wrong? Cisco says, I'm having trouble with the equipment here. It so lasts 50 years. Felicity says, sorry, we had to grab whatever we needed in a hurry. Cisco says, well, if we had better equipment, this would go a whole lot faster. It's been weeks with hardly any good progress. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but the equipment is so damn slow. Harley walks in and says, now you do. And then everyone looks at Harley, and Harley says, I need all of you to come with me. The gang walks out, and as they're walking, Felicity says, I have to go to work, guys. Everyone looks and says, work, and then Felicity says, yeah, do you think this beauty is cheap? Come on now. And then they all laugh. Harley says, I guess you're going to have to miss out on this. Now, when they all come out, they see a man. They say, what's going on? Rip says, hello, I am Rip Hunter, leader of Trough. So you're the new recruits, huh? Recruits, everyone says in a confused look. Harley explains and says Diggle and Thea were badly hurt in a robbery. They are being treated at our HQ right now. And then the group says, what happened? Who did this? And then he explains it was a man named Multiplex. He was very powerful, but we managed to take him down. The group then gets in a van and heads towards Trop's HQ. Meanwhile, Wally is running around the city, dealing with riots by the Equalists. During the weeks after the new law is placed, a new group emerged from the shadows. EOD, Equality or Death. They are not on anyone but their self-side. Humanity and metas join together to fight back against the government, other metas, and anyone else that wants to stop their way of life. Wally gets a call on his headset from Iris saying, "Where is he?" Wally questions if anything is wrong. Iris says no, but she needs to know where he is. He says he's back at the city, dealing with the new clique that just crawled up. Iris says, "When you're done, contact me. We're getting a big change." Wally agrees and keeps running around the city. He sees a meta robbing people and runs over to the meta to confront him. Now it's a lady and a man over her. Now Wally grabs the man and throws him into the wall, and he says, "This is just not your night." And then the guy looks up and says, "Oh, it is." Now his skin starts to turn into a hot cinder type material. Now, Wally says this is a meta. He's also getting shot by tasers in his back by the woman who was supposedly being robbed and other people who were hiding. Now, Wally manages to send the electricity back into one of the people. The meta tries to attack Wally but fails. The others begin shooting Wally with handguns. Wally moves them in the path of their own bullets and kills them. Now the meta that's remaining, Wally actually picks up a gun and fires two into him. Now the meta gets up and is completely unscathed by this. Now Wally actually runs, gets a piece of metal, runs so fast the metal warps around his hand, and he busts the meta's head wide open. Now, he runs by a cop car and hears news of the task force members fighting EOD downtown. Heavy casualties. Wally runs down there. When he arrives, the cops are beaten and pushed back. Wally runs and starts to beat each of the EOD humans down. He manages to run up the building where they're holding off the cops with AK-47 fire and manages to push all of the guys off of the building onto cars. It didn't kill them, but it did break a few bones. Now Wally runs down and says, "Is everything else alright?" Wally also questions why were humans shooting at police? And then the cops answers, because they're with EOD. Humans and metas are working together to fuck up everyone. Wally says that he was just attacked by a meta and four other humans. The cops said that that's EOD guaranteed. Wally questions, what does that mean? They say equality or death. After making sure everyone's alright, Wally runs around the city to stop the rise of EOD before the situation gets out of hand. Black Flash sits by a pond as a mysterious force contacts Black Flash. Black Flash looks up and the force says, "I'm not able to fend off the Speed Force entirely because of your massive connection with it." Now, Black Flash questions, "Who are you?" The voice says, "My name is Darkseid." Black Flash says, "I never heard of you." Darkseid says, "Those who are, they're dead or my allies." Black Flash says, "What can you do for me?" Darkseid says, "I see you want a woman. You need your flesh back to do it." Black Flash says it's impossible for him to go back. Darkseid says no, it's not, and reaches out his hand to Black Flash. He tells Black Flash to come with him. Black Flash says, "But the Speed Force," Darkseid says, "the Speed Force can't go where we're going." Black Flash grabs his hand and is pulled into the darkness of Apocalypse. There, Black Flash feels more free from the Speed Force. He has his own mind, he can actually breathe. Darkseid says, "In my realm, I am the only one who is control. I am God here." Black Flash walks to Darkseid's lab and sees a black suit with flesh attached. Darkseid says, "This will be your new body, Prime Male, 23. Darkseid begins to transfer Black Flash's mind into the body as he sleeps and says, "Caitlin, I'll be back," as the final words of Black Flash before he closes his eyes for the surgery. Darkseid's scientists begin the procedure. The next scene is Eddie walking to his car, calling Iris with no answer. He leaves her a message saying that everyone is worried about her. He's worried about her. It's been weeks. We want to know if you're dead. We just want to know what's happening. Please call me, is what he says, and hangs up the phone, puts it in his pocket. Now he reaches down with his key to his door, trying to open it with the donuts in his hand, when he sees a crowd of three run up with AK-47s, and they all scream equality or death and starts firing at Eddie. One guy hits Eddie in the shoulder through the window. As Eddie falls back, he picks up his gun and starts firing under his car, hitting one guy in the ankle. Now the other two help the guy away as they still fire at Eddie's car. A few members of the task force comes out and starts shooting back at the EOD crowd. Now, the three managed to actually escape, continually firing gunshots down the alley. Now, they managed to hop into a garage or some type of other way so they could get to the next block. Now, the task force members run out, sees Eddie lying there, and then picks him up and to take him to the hospital. Now, Wally is running around and handling the new EOD group. Wally manages to kill 20 of them, all human. In the background, a newscast is playing. Newscaster is talking about attacks on the police, government bombings, government threats, hostage situations, even fights with the Flash. This new EOD group has really taken the city by storm in a bad way, with a recorded 100 metas and 500 humans being in the overall army. This group is the most dangerous that we have seen, Hef or otherwise. What has our city come to? Firestorm and Killer Frost watching the news at EOD's recent attacks. A mysterious voice asks about the new group. Frost says that they're called EOD, Equality or Death. Are they metas or are they humans? The mysterious voice questions. Firestorm says they are both. They want to live together, not separate. The voice says, gods, pretending to be man, wanting to be accepted by them. They should rule them. And in an angry tone as the voice throws an 80-pound sofa at the TV. Panning up, the voice is revealed to be Grodd. Frost says, I'm guessing you want to change the channel. Grodd looks at her and Killer Frost says, whatever. Firestorm says, this is a major problem. This is going against not only our plans, but this is also going to cause us major problems. How are we going to take on multiple groups? And then groups with metahumans on their sides as well. Grodd tells him to calm down. Killer Frost says, I don't really like being the sarcastic one that much, but I have to agree with my boyfriend over here. How in the world can we possibly take down more groups, and then ones with more metas than we even have to offer? Grodd says, we can use this in our favor. For one, those metas are not highly trained as all of you are. They just were regular people who were not trying to get involved, and now they're lashing out. They don't have the mentality that you all have. That's what our edge is. Plus, we can use them. Killer Frost says, how can we use them? Grodd says, we can use them to cover our tracks. The media, the government, Trough, and the Flash are all focusing on EOD and their terroristic nature right now. It is time to commence phase 3. Killer Frost and Firestorm look at Grodd with big eyes. Grodd calls in Tony and tells him he has a job for him. Tony says, do I get to kill anyone? Grodd says, lots. Tony smiles and says, this is going to be fun. Grodd says this is war, not playtime, and asks him to have a seat. Other metas from the Human Eradication Force, aka HELP, start coming in for the meet. Tony says, ooh, I get playmates. Frost laughs. The metahumans start joking around when Grodd steps up to the podium and says, silence! All the metas get quiet. Grodd says he has a new order and a new way we're about to do things. Let's get started. Now, we have to blow up 6 buildings. Now, these buildings contain main supplies for the military division Argus, Metahuman Suppression Force. They have a Spartan Force, which are superhuman by heavy experimentation by the military. These are not metas. These are genetic freaks, Grodd says. Now, one of the buildings contained a satellite uplink codes. This is going to be the first building we hit. Pistol laser manufacturing. We cannot have these humans with heavier and more dangerous weapons than we currently operate. Argus vehicle repairs. And plans need to be stolen and the building blown. We're not trying to destroy everything they're doing. We're trying to get the plans so we can copy it. So make sure you get those plans before the building is destroyed. Now, for the first building, which is called Know Your Universe Inc. Grodd orders Tony and another Meta to go up and take it down. Tony agrees and the duo leaves. The rest of the Metas Grodd sends for various other tasks. He looks back and says this meeting is adjourned. The Metas get up and leaves. He looks at another TV screen as the president sits back and calls metahumans freaks, abominations, and overall should not be on this planet. Grodd looks at the TV in anger. Meanwhile, Felicity gets a call from Diggle. She says she can't talk long, she's at work. Diggle said, "Work?" He questions, "When did you start work?" And then Felicity says, "Do you think I could be this beautiful on a budget? Come on now." They both laugh. She said that she works at Know Your Universe Inc., accompanied by Robert Queen, so they can examine the outer atmosphere and hopefully find some parts of aliens. Diggle said, "Aliens?" Now Felicity says, "After everything we've seen, aliens is not that far a stretch." Now Diggle says, "Wow, that's amazing to get in. A lot of people I know have been working their asses off going to Harvard and such, but you got in. How is that possible?" Felicity says, "Hey, my dad wasn't a genius for nothing. It rubbed off on his daughter." Now, Felicity also asks about the bank incident and how Diggle should be resting. Diggle laughs and tells her he's in Troff's headquarters. Felicity screams. Everybody in the office looks at her. She walks out and shuts up and says, "I can't wait to get off." "Where is it at again?" Diggle says, "I can't say it over the phone, but I'll be in touch once you get off." She says, "That's a date. I mean, not a date because, you're dating Thea. I'm going to shut up now." They both laugh. And then Felicity says, "Oh, here comes my boss. I have to go." And then Felicity's boss walks up to her and questions, why is she on the phone? She said, "For maintenance. My computer is acting up." Her boss buys it and tells her to input the satellite coordinations and give the findings to the research team on the 5th floor. She nods with a smile and begins walking over to the satellite code uplink room. Now, as she's walking, the elevator opens up behind her, and it's Tony in the elevator. He's dressed like a janitor. He easily sneaks past everyone and goes along the building, planting bombs until a security guard sees him. He is told to stop. Tony looks at the man. The security guard gets a bad feeling and pulls out his gun and points it at Tony, telling Tony to get on the ground. Tony then becomes clad in metal. Now, the security officer begins firing the bullets at Tony, but they bounce off of him. Tony then picks up the man and throws him out the window. An alert is activated, saying that there is a breach, and they will begin locking down the satellite uplink codes and the orbital defense codes. Tony couldn't steal what he was supposed to, so instead he decided to blow it. He presses the button and it says 1 minute. Now, he didn't realize he would have time, so he runs to see if he can steal any of the plans before it blows up. Felicity finds the bomb, and with other co-workers trying to escape, they also see Felicity trying to disarm the bomb and tries to go over to offer some type of assistance. Now, Felicity manages to disable the bomb, and Tony runs back and he sees them messing with it. Now, Tony knows that if they manage to get away, the plans will be lost anyway, so he figures I might as well take them down as well. Now, he runs and snaps the back of one employee and stabs 2 others using the man's torso and spine. He slaps Felicity, breaking her jaw. Tony says, "You bitch." Tony manually activates the bomb, blowing up the building, sending him flying thousands of feet north. Meanwhile, the group arrives at Troff's secret base. Cisco sees another van pull up with Power Outrage's body in it. Rep says, "Shall we proceed, ladies and gentlemen?" And they enter into the secret hidden base, which is in snow. Once they get inside, Barry and Cisco go all crazy over the technology. Barry quotes that stuff like this is only theory now. "How did you?" Laurel walks out saying he's from the future. Rep laughs and says, "You love saying it, don't you?" Laurel says, "You bet." Rep says, "Yes, I am. I'm from the future. I brought my wife and son here to escape a horrible fate." Trop scientists put the body on the table. Cisco runs over saying, Hey, watch it. All right, I need that body as you found it, intact." Barry and Rev just laugh at Cisco. Rip says, "Let me speak to you for a minute, Mr. Allen." Rip says that, "Is what Hartley tells me true? You time traveled?" Barry says, "Yes, I did. I caused all of this hell, and I don't have my powers back to try to fix it." Rip says, "Amazing." being able to move as fast as you do and break the time barrier. You're hoping to get your powers back, aren't you? Barry answers, yes, I have to stop Black Flash and bring an end to this madness. A red alert comes onto the base. Rip and Barry run back to the control room. On the monitor, it shows the satellite building burning down. Diggle rolls up in a wheelchair and screams, no! As he falls out crying. Everyone wonders what's wrong. He says Felicity was in there, and now she's not picking up. Rip's lieutenant says it was a health attack. Rip agrees. Rip then asks the medical lieutenant, is Rupture ready for battle? She states that even with the futuristic technology that you brought back, it's still going to take time for him to heal. He's still badly damaged, but I do have 5 other agents. Will they be enough? Rip says they're going to have to be. The agents walk into the room, and then Rip shows them the footage. This Meta flew out of an exploding building. Not because of his own will, he flew because of the sheer impact of the explosion. And then, let's zoom in a bit. He has a metal body. That body is still intact. He's able to survive an explosion up front. This might be even more trouble than these 5 can handle. Another alert came up. The Trop base Echo 2 is under attack. Rip orders multiple troops to be sent. Barry says wait. He calls Wally and tells Wally about the situation. Wally agrees to go help, and he says, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because now my sister's involved in that, and he runs off. Wally runs over and greatly assists Echo 2, taking down 15 metas, chaining them up and knocking them out. Rip says, who would have thought that we have a meta helping us? Cisco says, well, I'm a meta too. The entire Trop base turns around and looks at Cisco. Cisco's eyes get completely open, and Rip asks about his abilities. Once Cisco explains everything, Rip says, remarkable. You're really something. Cisco says, well, time for me to get to work on the weapon. Now, I've almost cracked what I need. I need his bones as a conductor, and I need to shape them into the barrel of the weapon. Rip walks away and says to himself, those metas cannot be trusted. Hours later, Cisco makes another breakthrough using the Trop scientist's help. Apparently, Power Outage's blood can be placed on a special suit for Barry that will allow the weapon to deliver the speed straight to his body without a container needed for the gun. Now, Barry says, is this safe? And Cisco says, yeah, maybe. Well, it's a high probability that this is safe, Barry says Cisco, and then Cisco says, well, you know, science is all about trial and error. And then Barry says, what happens if I'm the error? Cisco gets quiet and looks at Barry. Barry looks at him. He's like, Cisco? And then before this conversation gets too heated, Rip walks out and yells, I have a big announcement to the entire Trop agency. Everyone looks around. He says, we just got a shipment of new enhanced tech. New recruits being brought to Trop from private investors. Now we have 200 more people on our war front. Not to mention other type of vehicles, airplanes and such like that can really help Trop. Now that we have enough, it's time to bring the fight to Hef. Everyone screams for joy. Meanwhile, in a different location around the same time, EOD members start invading Starling City to recruit and causing massive problems throughout the city. This alerts the local law enforcement, which causes a massive firefight between the two groups. The fighting caused a truck to be rammed into a power station, and the pole from it made it crash and destroy the Arrow Cave, exposing it to everyone outside. The firefight continues until SWAT arrives. EOD is chased out of the city. The police return to investigate the fighting. Wally runs back to see this and runs off trying to contact Iris. She answers and says she's driving back to Central City. Wally tells her what happened to the base. She says, where's Barry? Wally says, I don't know. I just got there. Cops are just searching that. Iris says, thank you, God, because she was just leaving as Barry and the others were being taken to the Trop HQ. Now, she also comments saying that EOD is becoming more and more uncontrollable. I believe they are behind the recent bombings. Wally says that as long as you're alright, I'm going to be okay. Iris says, I wish I could have gone with them. This job really takes the fun out of life, and hangs up. Wally races back to Central City to meet Iris. Back on planet Apocalypse, Darkseid is overlooking the Black Flash's transformation, infusing the flesh of 100 primed, fit, and healthy mortals. Combined with the speed force in his body, he'll be an unstoppable warrior for Apocalypse, Darkseid thought. Now, Darkseid scientists came in to talk to Darkseid about the matter. Now, they said that it's not likely that he'll be able to maintain that form without some type of suit. Darkseid says, I agree, go make one. The speed force in his body is holding it together, but I do not know how long it will actually hold. And before he could finish, an explosion is heard from the lab. Darkseid runs back and sees a naked human. Darkseid says, my son, how do you feel, Black Flash? Black Flash says, I don't want that name anymore. Darkseid questions. Black Flash says, the Flash was something that Barry Allen came up with. I am my own man, no longer held by my hatred and by the past of Barry Allen. And then Darkseid says, whoa, what do you want to be called? And he said, I need a name of my own will, so when I kill him, he'll know that this race I will win. Wait, Racer. I got it. Darkseid looks confused. My new name will be Black Racer. Darkseid says, well, it suits you. Now that you got in your flesh and bone, you can actually start repaying your debt. Racer says, I'll do anything. Darkseid says, we are going to control all the metas on Earth as a personal army, and you will be the general. Black Flash smiles and looks at Apocalypse. Now, Darkseid also tells him, I have a suit that has to be made for you because your body cannot contain itself. And then Black Racer says, I feel it slipping away. Darkseid says, not for much longer. There is a suit being prepared for you. Once the suit is finished, we can commence this. Darkseid smiles, and then Darkseid says, it will take 2 weeks for your body to heal. Once that's over, everyone against us will die. Dark Racer kneels and says, I am right with you, Master. With Black Flash running through Apocalypse while Darkseid is watching. He stops and removes the mask and breathes in deeply. I have flesh again. Thank you, Jesus. I can remember everything now. Caitlin, I'm coming back to you, he yells. Black Racer then runs over to Darkseid and says, I'm ready to return to Earth. Darkseid says, I'm ready also, but the force that controls you has been acting crazy ever since you left. We've had to fight skeletal creatures, and we managed to kill them. Black Racer looks up and says, you killed them? They're immortal. Nothing is immortal, my son. Darkseid looks at Black Racer and says, Darkseid contacts a scientist and he brings him the weapon. Darkseid says, this gun disintegrates them. He gives it to Black Flash and says, take care not to be taken back. Racer puts his mask on and says, yes, my master. Darkseid's technicians then break in saying, we have 5 minutes. Racer runs to the portal. Darkseid smiles and looks into the space of Apocalypse. Black Flash runs through and lands in Starling City. He looks around, glad to be back, and the first person he wants to see is on his mind is Caitlin. Moments before that happened, Barry is laying on the ground bleeding as Nyssa prepares to face Tony. Tony charges at her. She jumps up and swipes him in the back, chipping his metal. He yells, what the? How does that hurt me, you bitch? Nyssa says, I fought you many times, and I had a blade made that was made of stronger metal than you. You killed my husband, and now you'll join him. Tony laughs, saying, haha, man, I bet he misses that hot ass too. Nyssa throws 2 daggers at Tony. They bounce off and chip him even more. He runs and knocks the car over trying to hit her. The car actually hits the wall, falls back, lands at Tony's feet, and the shockwave sends him flying back into a lobby, but the fight continues. Nyssa sits there laughing at Tony. Tony gets angry, gets up, and manages to grab her. He throws her 10 feet, hitting a wall. Nyssa gets up and swings the sword. Tony grabs it and snatches it away from her. He jokes and he lightly smacks her, knocking her to the ground, bruising and busting up her face. She then throws a ball at the wall. Tony laughs, saying, what, you missed? Tony then begins to walk towards her, but a force pulls Tony back towards the wall. Nyssa said, miss? Nah, the experimental putty works just fine. Tony says, what the fuck? Magnetic cells are all throughout this thing. You're done, Nyssa says. Tony looks at her and says, is that so? Tony then breaks the column that he was attached to and says, "You need two things to hold me. This putty is useless on its own. There's no magnetics in the brickwork, you dumb bitch." Nyssa is shocked. He then hits Nyssa, breaking her arm. Nyssa runs as Tony's rampage continues. Now she gets her sword and has a brief fight with Tony. Tony grabs a car door, hitting Nyssa, breaking her rib and cutting her face. Nyssa's down bleeding. Barry saying, "Please Tony, don't do this." And then he looks at Barry and says, "Who the hell is Tony?" and grabs Nyssa. He is about to finish her when he hears something and turns around. It's Firestorm. He flies in and says, "I thought you were dead." Tony then looks and says, "Who am I?" Firestorm says, "Come with me and you'll find out." Tony then powers down from his metal form, but only keeping the metal in his hand, so when he grabs Firestorm to fly off, he doesn't get burned. With the two gone, Barry can finally breathe easily. Now he calls over to Nyssa but gives no response. Now he manages to crawl over, stumbling to get Nyssa's earpiece. He then hears Rip in the earpiece. He tells him this is Barry and tells Rip the situation. Trough then sends two medics to pick both of them up. While they are riding, Barry says, "Please drop me off at Central City." Everyone looks around and says, "Sir, we're taking you to get help. Look at how badly you're damaged." Barry pleads, saying that it's pertaining to the mission. Please. Then one car takes Nyssa to the other hospital while they take Barry to Central City Hospital. They drop him off at the front part of the hospital and take back off towards Trough's base. Now, Barry calls Iris. Iris is freaking out and Barry says, "It's okay. It's all right." So, what about that date now? Iris says, "We do need to talk." So that sounds great. Hours later, Barry and Iris come out of the theater, laughing about the newest X-Men movie. Iris says, "Could you imagine if we were born with those abilities?" Barry says, "I couldn't. Let's just keep those freaks that have the X gene over there. We don't need any more problems." And they both laugh. Barry says, Iris says, "See, I told you, you need rest." Barry says, "I'm used to this. Healing. Well, I was used to it." Iris said, "That's in another timeline. You're human like the rest of us. You need time to rest." As they are walking, Wally is walking with the Jesse unmasked, and Wally and Barry meet eyes. Iris smiles and says hey to Wally. Wally gives a mean look to both of them and walks in with Jesse. Iris says, "I wish you two would get along." Barry says, "I guess some things aren't meant to be." They both continue to laugh and walk off into the distance. Now, back at Trough, repairs are being made. Rip walks into a room where Cisco is meditating. Rip apologizes to Cisco for his rude comments. He says he can't fully trust Metas after what happened. Cisco says that Immortal is dangerous. Rip looks at Cisco shockingly. Rip says, "How do you?" Cisco says, "Another power I have. If I touch something of yours or you, I can see it. Like when I first touched your hand, I saw everything." Rip says his name is Vandal Savage. Cisco interrupts. "Whoa, I remember seeing a guy with that name for Star Labs. He's running it or something. He's immortal?" "The worst kind," Rip says. "Not like the kind off Fall Out Boy. That song was epic." "Sorry, I try to get my mind off of troubling things," Rip says. Cisco says, "I saw your family. They're not in this time." Rip says, "Yes, they are with my mother." "How much did you see?" "4 events. The last is you fighting alongside heroes. No, legends." Rip says, "You mean Trough?" Cisco says, "No, your team was small, but powerful." Cisco begins to make a portal. It's small, but he managed to stabilize it. Rip then says, "I don't know anything about metahuman powers, how they work, how you guys operate. What I do know is the human heart, and I do know the human fighting spirit. And Cisco, or should I say Mr. Ramon, you have more of that than most of my commanders. I'm sorry about what I said again. Take your time. Like I said, I believe in you." And Cisco says, "It's about time somebody did." And they both laugh. Meanwhile, Eddie assembles a task force. Patty and Eddie are the leading commanders. They're going to raid an abandoned building suspected of harboring EOD. The task force assembles into their vehicles. Eddie takes Patty with him. They get in the van and lead the charge. Patty kisses Eddie and Eddie returns the kiss. Eddie says, "You better fucking make it out of this." Patty says, "You too. This is for all our friends these bastards have put in the fucking ground." Patty yells. The task force arrives at the warehouse, blocks away for surveillance. They wait until everyone went inside to raid the place. Through the window, through the doors, and through the back way, gunfire rained on the EOD, killing 53 and capturing 60. The task force cheered until a medic walked in. This medic looked at everyone and said, "You're all useless. Hef will reign supreme," and turns into a gas cloud. The gas cloud is coming towards the task force. Terror is filled throughout everyone's body, but then the gas stops. The gas man turns back to his normal state and looks up. It's Black Racer. Gas man says, "What the hell? The Flash?" Black Racer looked up, ran, and cut right through the gas man's ribs before he can go into gas form. He falls and then turns into gas, but it was a mix of red and green, and then it went towards Racer. Racer dodges each of the gas man's attack. The gas man yells, "Nobody fucks with Mist!" Now Racer thinks, this suit can possibly allow me to burn the gas by introducing an isolating chemical. Now the gas man turns back into human, partially healed. "What are you, some hero?" Black Racer then looks up, runs, and kills everyone who's EOD in the room and 2 cops. Runs back and says, "Do I look like one?" Mist says, "What the fuck do you want?" "To kill the Flash," he replies. "Now, just to kill you." Mist begins to turn, but Racer stabs him 68 times before Mist or anyone knew what was going on. Mist falls to the ground coughing up blood. He looks up. There are spikes that come out of Black Racer's suit. Black Racer then grabs Mist and says, "Feels good to be back." Mist questions, "What are you talking about?" and grabs Mist even harder on the throat and says, "Let me help you understand something. This is a God's fight. We are gods. You weak shit should just stand there and feed us. You take orders from us. Just hide and cower while the gods do battle, and at the end, we'll come for you. You will be our servants. Remember that. You are nothing but fucking servants." The Mist then spits blood into Black Racer's face. He doesn't take kindly to that. Black Racer then rips the throat out of Mist, dropping his body on the ground, looking at the task force. The task force are too afraid to fire, and runs off. Back at Trop's HQ, lead scientist Curtis figures out the remaining factor for the weapon. It needed a power source that could hold as much energy as the Flash can generate. From his calculations, when they ran tests on that speed girl when she broke through the barrier, as well as Trop's checkpoints, we were able to accurately measure how much energy output she is pushing, and it was actually the similar output which was measured off of Kid Flash. Now, it would be more complete if Cisco didn't use that portal crap, he says. Cisco then walks over and confronts Curtis saying, "Excuse me? Portal crap?" Curtis walks around and says, "This is science. We have no reason for people who are a mistake of God to try to interfere with it." Cisco then grabs Curtis by his neck and slams him on the ground. Rip and the others manage to break them apart. Rip says, "Listen, you will give him just as much respect as you will give me. Understand?" Rip says that to Curtis. Curtis apologizes and then keeps going. The current power source cannot handle excess speeds of a speedster. We got accurate measurements from the speed girl when she ran past Trop's checkpoints as well as broke through Trop's protective barrier. Now, what we're going to need is a diamond. A diamond will be able to harness the energy and also redirect the energy output properly so it can actually drive the energy from Black Flash and get it into Barry. Cisco then says, "Well, if only we had a giant diamond, but sadly we don't." "Or something like it," Curtis says. Cisco then looks at him. Then Curtis runs to get an orb, which was a futuristic power source. It redirects energy for a more efficient light bill, Curtis laughs. Anyway, this thing can do the same thing as the properties of a diamond. They test it out, and the weapon activates. Curtis walks to Cisco and says, "I apologize for what I said once again. Let's get this work done and let's fight the real evil out there." They both high-five and get to work. Hours later, in another scene, Laura is seen walking to Hartley's house, calling him saying that she's almost at his place when someone bumps her. They both fall. Sarah then says, "Watch it, bitch." Laurel says, "Watch it, you." They both stop and look at each other. They stare, trying to figure out why they look similar. Siren smiles and hits Laurel with a high-pitched scream, sending her flying. Laurel gets up and uses her scream. Black Siren laughs, saying, "Is that all you got?" and then hits Laurel with another scream. Now this scream actually cancels out Laurel's power. It also damages her collar. Now then, Black Siren walks up and starts beating Laurel in the face. Then she's hit with a certain frequency. She grabs her head, screaming in pain. She can't see where it's coming from. Black Siren then jumps off of Laurel, looks at the ground, yells, and is sent flying into the air. As Laurel looks around, she sees Hartley. He runs towards her and holds her in his arms, saying, "I'm glad I made it. Laurel, stay with me, please." Now, the next scene, at the exact same time, Vandal Savage is getting in his limo to drive to see Robert and Starling. The car blows up, and his guards are pushed to the ground from the explosion. They look behind them and yell, "Savage!" As they do, EOD runs firing AK-47s, killing the guards. 3 EOD members are shot dead. When the smoke clears, EOD stands victorious. They look at the burning car and laugh, but their laughs are cut short when a piece of burning glass hits one of their members in the eye and kills him. They look at the burning car, and there is Savage walking out. He's frowning and says, "Do you know how long it took me to order this suit?" The EOD members are gazing at Savage in horrific fear and begin to open fire, but the bullet wounds produce no blood. Savage throws 5 blades, killing all of the EOD men except the one who blocked the knife. It's a meta who can make glass weapons. He lunged towards Savage and Savage punches through his heart. Savage says, "There is a glass house joke here, but I'm too old for this," and rips out the meta's heart. Now the meta's heart does contain glass properties. Now Savage then calls Robert to have a helicopter pick him up. In a different part of Central City, Wally is out walking with Jess when he gets a text on his phone. It's from Black Flash. He says, "It's Iris, I have to go," and runs off. He runs to the spot where he last met Black Flash. Wally says, "What do you want? I'm done with your bullshit. You nearly killed Iris." "Yes, I did," Black Racer responds, "and I will kill many more." Wally looks upon Black Racer's face and says, "Who are you?" Racer says, "Reborn and changed." And then he charges at Wally. Wally begins to try to run away, but Black Racer kicks him, sending him into the wood wall. He runs and grabs Wally, and Wally says, "I'll give you Barry. Just leave Iris alone, please." Racer says, "I no longer want Alan. He's no meta. I want you." Wally gasping for air, and then the Racer tells him, "My name is no longer Black Flash. It's Black Racer." And then Wally kicks Black Racer in the stomach and then runs off. Wally is chased by Black Racer all throughout the city and only manages to escape only by hiding in a department store. Black Flash loses interest and says, "I'll see you again wherever you are," he screams and runs off. Black Racer looks above at a plane. It's flying weird, he wonders. He sees it's actually chasing someone. EOD members have hijacked a jet and was having a firefight with Firestorm. The EOD members begin shooting the anti-tank bullets at Firestorm, killing 50 innocents, as well as doing major damage to the surrounding buildings. Now, Firestorm sees the 2 target buildings, Star Labs Weapons Works, and Queen's Body Protection Services. He gets an all clear from the meta who was supposed to steal the plans, a new girl named Shadowcat. Firestorm then has the jet follow him to the building. He shows a fire blaze to blind the pilots. By the time they can see, they crash into the tower, making it fall on the other. Firestorm then fired at the gas leaking from the engine and blew up both buildings easily. Radio's back and flies off. Racer runs and sees where he's going, but he also sees the people that are coming out of the building injured. One of them is Caitlin. Racer in anger runs after Firestorm. Minutes after, in Hef's HQ, a celebration about the victory of the building explosions happen. Everyone's partying, even Grodd, until Black Racer runs in. The music stops. Every meta looks at him. Grodd tries to mind blast him, but the suit's interference cancels it. Black Flash did feel the try, and 5 metas charge him. They die before 1.1 seconds are up. Grodd asks, "Why did you attack us?" Racer says, "I don't know," and runs off, leaving the dead bodies and an angry Grodd. Black Siren running in the alley, stealing food from the local deli. She sits and starts eating it right next to a dumpster. She says, "I haven't eaten in weeks. That bitch always chasing me." "You won't be eating at all," a voice calls out. Siren gets up and is surrounded by Human Eradication Force metas. Canary, we've been looking for you, one of the metas says. They also say, where's your mask? She then begins to sit there staring at the metas, preparing for a confrontation. Two of them decide to run at her, but she uses her high-pitched scream to blast them away into the wall. Frost then appears out of nowhere, making an ice wall, blocking the blast, but looks and says, when did you become a meta? Hef turns their attention to her abilities. Frost then stares at her and smiles and begins to walk over to Siren. Siren begins to put up her dukes, but then Frost says, hey, cool it. You're not from this world, are you? Siren says, how could you possibly know that? Because, she replies, when the particle accelerator exploded, I saw another me when I looked into the ice. It was weird. I could grab her. Once the shockwave ended, I laid there next to her. She got up and just ran off. I laid there captured while she's stealing my life. No one cared because they already had one Caitlin. I'm guessing you're from her world. Caitlin, Siren says. She's a scientist with a very questionable method background. Had the whole police force knocking at her door. She disappeared out of nowhere. I thought she had powers. Well, I guess I was part right. It was her, but it wasn't her. Frost then looks saying, is it good? Looking at the food Siren stole, she says, it's not the best, but it's helpful. Come with us, Frost offers Siren. What is us? She replies. Hef, she explains. The Human Eradication Force. We will rule this world as gods. Siren says, you remind me of a guy I once knew, or felt like I knew. She says, you got yourself another meta. At the same time, Cisco is uptown buying lunch for Curtis and the other Trough members. He walks out and gives the members their food. They all laugh, saying, I can't wait until the world is where we can just sit here and enjoy our food without worry of war. As they say that, EOD members see the trucks of Trough, thinking they are the task force, and begins to open fire. Trough manages to kill 6 EOD members without any casualties. Then a meta walks out saying, I guess you missed a few. A sand hand comes from the person, knocking back all of Trough's members. Curtis and Cisco are the only ones that remain. Then a sand wall comes up and knocks Cisco into the air. As he falls, Curtis runs and jumps and catches Cisco, but at the cost of knocking himself out. Now, Cisco looks at the meta and says, why is it that people like you must take away everything? His power activates, and he shatters the nervous system of the meta and the other EOD members that ran up trying to assist the meta. The sand meta drops saying, what did you do to me? Cisco then creates a breach over the meta's head and closes it, cutting the meta's neck in half. Cisco then passes out. Trough members get up and race back to headquarters to aid in his recovery. In the distance, Tony is watching the Trough members carry Cisco into the van. He then decides this will be a good time to strike, but before he can, he hears something behind him. He turns around. It's Nissa. She says, well, round 2 then, bitch? Tony then smiles, saying, you know, I've been wanting to tap that ass again since I seen it. Nissa says, well then, big man, let's see what you got. The two then stare down and then charge at each other. Moments later, Wally is contacted by Trough to return to the base. Wally says, I don't take orders from you. Iris gets on the line saying, Wally, swallow your fucking pride and get to the base. This is serious. Wally grabs Jess's hand and says, let's go together. Jess questions saying, I'll go anywhere with you and however long with you, but didn't I destroy a piece of their base? Wally says, don't worry about it. They suffer far more than this. They both begin to run to the HQ. When they arrive, guns are pointed at Jess. Jess puts her hands up. Wally runs, grabbing the gun, saying, guys, chill out. Barry walks in and says, who is this? Jesse Quick, nice to meet you. She responds, so you're the old Flash. Barry looks at Wally. Barry says, it's a lot more complicated than that. Rep says, enough conversation. Let's get to work, people. Rep then walks by Jesse saying, you owe me a new door, young lady. Jesse then goes over to Wally and says, he thinks he's bigger than you, but I know the truth. The weapon is complete, Rep announces. With minor adjustments, we found the best way to capture the Black Flash's Speed Force is a device that someone has to actually wear to drain the Black Flash's Speed Force and direct it into Barry. Wally steps up and says, "It's not going to be that easy." Everyone stares. He has a metal suit and weird cyber bionics. Barry gives up and questions, "How do you possibly know that?" Wally says, "Because I ran into him 4 days ago." Barry says, "Why didn't you tell us?" "I don't have to answer to you," Wally responds. Barry screams, saying, "It's not about me, it's about Iris, Troth, and the world. It can all be saved if we get Black. Don't be reckless, and don't let your hatred for me blind you." Wally walks up to Barry with his fist balled. Barry walks up to Wally saying, "Well then, what's up, man?" Jesse runs between them saying, "Boys, put your cock away. I thought you wanted to take this guy down." Barry then looks at Jess saying, "Wait, aren't you?" Jesse quickly responds saying, "Yep, I'm the girl that was on Wally's arm." Wally says, "I can lure him out. But how do you know this will work?" "Trial and error," Barry responds. Cisco is rushed in, tied down to a stretcher. Barry runs over saying, "Cisco, what happened?" Curtis walks over to Barry and explains everything. He says we got attacked by EOD, and Cisco killed the meta. Barry says, "What? Cisco doesn't kill." Curtis says, "It looked like he lost control for a minute when we were back into a corner, and he cut the meta's head off using one of his breaches." Barry then thinks to himself, "This timeline is corrupting everyone. I must get this done, and in a hurry." Curtis then says, "I can still help in Cisco's place. We worked on this together, and I know it inside and out." Barry then agrees, and then the plan is commencing. Wally is seen running, and he contacts Razor saying, "You want me? Come and get me," and sends a GPS signal to Razor's communicator. Razor runs to meet Kid Flash. Now, they arrive at the industrial plant. Razor walks up to Kid Flash saying, "Now, are you finally ready to serve a higher power?" Kid Flash starts laughing saying, "Serve? The only one that's going to be serving somebody is you. You'll be serving that demon in hell, you bastard." Razor smiles saying, "You really think you can beat me? And what's up with that device? It's so unfast as you now." I remember Barry having something like that," Razor replies. "I can put it to better use." Before Black Flash can finish, Jesse runs up and grabs Black Flash, putting him in a chokehold. Black Flash says, "Another speedster?" Wally runs over. As Jesse holds Black Flash up, Wally runs over and grabs Black Flash's back and pulls him towards the device. He then screams, "Now, Barry!" Then he begins to point the device at Barry. Now, when it hits Barry, Barry is engulfed in lightning. It actually makes him pass out. Curtis says, "No, I can't face Cisco ever again if he dies." And Curtis runs to Barry. Razor, in rage, starts shaking violently, knocking Jesse and Wally off of him. He then runs and grabs Wally by the neck and says, "I warned you. If you cross me, someone you loved will die." Jesse then runs towards Razor. He dodges and hits her in the neck, knocking her down. Wally says, "No!" and begins fighting Razor. Wally knocks Razor's hand off of his neck, throws a punch, but before he can, Razor hits him 5 times in the chest, sending him flying. Jesse gets up trying to help Wally, but then Razor kicks her in the ribcage, sending her back. Then he runs up and does a total of 100 punches on Jesse's entire body. Jesse then falls to the ground. Wally runs up trying to save her, but then Black Razor grabs Wally's feet and slams him into the ground. He then picks Jesse up and says, "I told you someone would die," and then he throws her into a tree, breaking her spine. Wally's chest is sliced open by Razor's weapon as he tries to run and catch Jesse before she hit the tree. At the same time, Barry wakes up and stands, looking at Razor. Razor says, "Welcome back, Flash." The two begin a battle that destroys a building. Razor says, "You're not fast enough to catch me," and save them. Before Razor runs off, he turns and looks at Barry and says, "Astonishing. I guess Power Allergist's body did work. Using a meta's body as a weapon. How did you know that?" Barry says. Black Razor says, "You shouldn't trust everybody, especially even those who hate you." Barry runs Wally and Jess back to the HQ as Black Razor stands there laughing. They are in critical condition. As he's running, Barry thinks, I'm faster than I've ever been. He's running thinking about how he first met Wally, letting Iris get hit by the glass, not being fast enough to protect her, Reverse Flash, Ronnie's death, and the Black Flash. At EOD, the base leader is about to make an announcement on the killing of their brothers and sisters. He says, no one will be safe until we can all live in peace. The leader is revealed to be Deadshot. He also informed everyone about the failed attack on Firestorm's life. Deadshot closes his eyes and says, the EOD members who died in that crash will be missed. More of our family dead because we just want freedom. We will not let them be forgotten, for the memories of these people will be burned into this planet. Above them, unknowingly, Robert Queen is testing his fully functional Atom suit. He's testing the flight mechanics. It's like I'm one with the air, Robert says. He's flying over the area, which is EOD's base, without him even realizing. He is then shot at by an AK-47. He fires his ion blast, sparking more force from EOD. Deadshot walks out and shoots Robert out of the sky, hitting his thrusters, which are 3 inches wide, from over 1,000 feet away. Robert then hits the emergency thrusters and takes off into the distance. Deadshot says, how did he know where to find us? One of the EOD members said, I just saw him flying. I don't think he knows about the base. Deadshot says, well, there's only one way to make sure. Back at Troth's base, Rupture is coming back. He just killed 14 EOD members and disarmed a bomb under Star Labs. Rupture walks past and sees Cisco in the medic bay. He walks in and says, I hope you're doing well, Cisco. Cisco says, how do you know my name? He removes his helmet and says, because I'm your brother, stupid. Cisco says, no, you're dead. Rip saved me. Rupture replies. Cisco hugs his brother and they reunite at last. Cisco says, I was so lost without you. What happened? Rupture says, after the Metas killed our family, Rip managed to get me out just before the explosion happened. He said he went back in time and said I would be a valuable member to this organization. Wally waking up, hardly able to breathe. Cisco is there saying, stay down, tough guy. I don't care if you're the Flash or not. This would cause anybody to take down, even Zeus. Wally looks over at Jess. She's in a coma state. Wally's crying and yells, this is all my fault. Cisco replies by putting a hand on his shoulder and says, look, nobody could have predicted how powerful Racer would be. He's no joke. Hours later, Barry walks in with Harley, Canary, and Iris. Wally gets up. Cisco says, dude, you need to stay down. Wally then yells at Barry saying, I hope you enjoy your speed thanks to our sacrifice. What happened is your fault and yours alone. Barry responds. Wally then gets up and tries to super punch Barry, but Barry stops it and puts Wally down. Iris runs to stop the fight. Barry says, how did he know? Everyone stops and looks at Wally. Barry repeats, how did Racer or Black Flash, whatever he's calling himself, how did he know about Power Outage's body? And what does he mean cross him? Why would he say that unless he is then interrupted by Harley as he pulls him off of Wally. Wally's just sitting there clenching his chest. Iris looks crying saying, Wally, no. Rip walks in saying, I heard the whole thing, with Troth members pointing guns at Wally. Rip asks, I believe Mr. Allen asked you a question. Wally in an angry tone says, it was your fault all this happened. He said that he could make everything better if I handed you to him. Everyone is shocked. Like I'll trust you, Wally says to Barry. Barry responds, you don't know anything about Hunter. Hunter, Wally questions. It's his name. He was a serial killer in his world. He killed thousands, if not millions of people. Do you know what the last thing he was going to do before I stopped him? No, I bet he didn't tell you. Destroy all the multiverses. Yes, where Jess is from. He was going to kill us all. I can't seem to remember the whole thing in every detail. I've been losing memories ever since this happened. But he was going to kill everyone. How could you trust someone like that? Wally then jumps up and says, it's because you killed my father. Iris stops crying and says, what? He's the reason, Iris, that we live in hell. He went back in time to save his mother and caused all of this. Iris looks at Barry and says, time travel? The trop soldiers then put their guns down. Rip says, Mr. Allen, is that what you meant by have you time traveled before? Barry has an awkward silence and says, he's right. This is all my fault. Even with my speed back now, I thought I could fix all this. Wally says, why don't you? Barry says, I tried. I dropped all of you off, and then I just tried to run as fast as I can. It's like I can't draw enough speed for us to go back. Iris says, Barry, crying her eyes out. Barry says, I've had both my parents murdered in front of me by speedsters. I hated being one. I hated speedsters in general. I just wanted all of this to just go away. All before the whole particle accelerator explosion. Who was made by a guy who wanted the Flash's speed. I thought I would be doing everyone a favor, by doing this. Iris walks up and slaps Barry, saying, you're selfish. You didn't think that messing with time would cause this? You yourself said you time traveled before and it caused deaths. I don't know who the real monster is, she says. Wally, you, or Black Racer, and runs out the room. Rip says, Mr. Allen, all things aside, I understand messing with time for your family. Believe me, I do. Now, your memories are disappearing because of the different timeline. The longer you're in here, the more you'll forget. We must move this along quickly if you want to fix what you screwed up. Barry and Wally then stare at each other. Barry says, what have you done? Wally says, I can ask you the same thing. Nyssa runs in saying, I'm sorry if I interrupted, but we have bigger matters to deal with. The president has ordered a full military offensive on the Human Eradication Force and ELD. Rip says, now we have the military to deal with. Fucking perfect. Laurel and Nyssa both look at each other and says, this can't get any worse. Back at EOD's base, the generals of EOD are revealed. Captain Boomerang, who lost his child when they were confirmed to be a meta. Katana, a government agent who turned traitor when she had to kill 9 metas who were kids. El Diablo was beaten by his father for being a meta, locked away, tortured, and embedded with these tattoo markings. Deadshot says, these are your leaders, who have much more of a grudge than you do. At an unknown location, Vandal Savage is meeting with Ra's al Ghul. They are discussing the base of Hef. Al Ghul questions, why didn't we report in the base to Vandal Savage? Vandal Savage says, because not reporting it in will make sure that we get to capture the metas first to make the ultimate weapon. Killing them serves no real purpose. Al Ghul says that will be nearly impossible. Vandal gets up and walks to his cabinet. He pulls out these special needles and says, after you kill them, suck up their DNA. It will be a slower process, but a process nonetheless. Al Ghul leaves and gathers his assassin group to get on the move. They get in the plane and head to the location. They decided on a sneak attack, so they parachuted from the plane above the base. When they land, it is an all-out bloodshed. More than 15 metas are killed. 5 are mortally wounded. All the assassins are dead, except for Al Ghul. Al Ghul then extracts DNA from multiple of the metas that were killed. He retreats after the encounter, mourning the loss of his group and trying to escape before more heavy reinforcements arrive. Later in the scene, Black Racer is sitting on a ledge looking over the city. Out of nowhere, the place starts shaking. Black Racer falls from the building 3 stories high and lands on the ground. Razor gets up and says, the Speed Force used to protect me from this, but this suit does the trick as well. Razor looks to the left. There, he sees Tremor standing in the distance. Tremor jokingly says, what are you supposed to be, RoboCop? Oh, wait, that's copyrighted. Razor begins to run to snap Tremor's neck, but Tremor causes a quake so strong it sends Razor flying into a building. Razor turns on his balancing turbos and easily gains his balance on the turf terrain. You should have stayed home, Razor says before he cuts the arm off of Tremor. Tremor screams, shit! Razor says, you're lucky I need you alive. Razor then presses a button on his suit and a beam of light comes out the sky and picks up Tremor. Racer runs off with Harrison Wells looking at him from the window of his building. He walks to his labs and tells his engineers they have to work 4 times as fast. We have a new speedsters. The mechs have the potential to be operational within a month, and then these things will be able to actually take down the metas. Harrison thinks in his mind, hours before the event, Hef members are beginning to take over the town, in which they are gaining turf, so to speak. The first is an abandoned school. Hef raids it, only to find one EOD member sitting in the middle of the floor. Hef says, "Hey fucker, you picked the wrong place to sleep," thinking the man's homeless. The man turns around. It's El Diablo. Frost is outside calling in to Grodd, letting him know about the captured base. And when the base bursts into flame, Hef members are seen flying out the windows and the roof. Frost drops her communicator. Diablo sees Frost and says, "Hef, you bastards are the reason they fear us." El Diablo fires 4 flame balls, but Frost deflects them with an ice wall. The wall melts instantly after the block. Diablo and Frost go at an all-out fight against each other, destroying blocks of apartment complexes. The military is flying above the area, seeing big chunks of ice and fire all over the place. The commander radios back saying, "That's a meta fight. Keep your distance." Diablo does "Roar of the Flaming Dragon." Frost says, "Ice Make, Cold Hammer," and Ice Make, Frozen Lake. She just manages to stop the attack. She knows she's beat. His fire, it burns like the sun, she thinks. Military choppers shine a light on them saying, "Freeze!" Frost then throws an ice shard into El, but it melts before it actually goes through, which makes El Diablo even more angry. Frost then makes a multi-layer ice shield around herself as El Diablo explodes with fire, taking down 2 helicopters and melting the tar on the road. Frost is seen with Firestorm after the explosion. He saved her just in time. She's badly burnt. Frost says, "I'll fucking kill you, you burning bastard." Firestorm then jokingly says, "I was wondering why the city looked like Natsu versus Grey off of Fairy Tail." More EOD members arrive to back up El Diablo. Firestorm flies off with Frost. Military is seen setting down at the ends of the city. El Diablo makes it back to the base, badly injured. Deadshot speaks to his people. "Your commander is down, just for sitting in a school. The problem might just be Hef in general. We're taking the fight to them." "As we are," and before he can continue, a voice responds, "Oh really?" Everyone is looking around. Where is it coming from, everyone wondered. The voice announces by name. "My name is Grunt, leader of Hef." Deadshot says, "You bastard. You dare speak to a god like that, human?" Grodd responds, "You're not a god," Deadshot says. "Just a bastard, responsible for us not being able to live together." Grodd laughs. "Gods and humans are meant to be separate, fool." Deadshot mocks Grodd. "You wouldn't dare move on this now with every military organization watching the city. You're just a coward, hiding behind your fucking falsehood of a god." Grodd said, "Well, we'll just have to meet on the battlefield. God versus men. I'll devour you." Deadshot responds, "After I kill you, we'll all be free." Grodd responds, interrupting him, "But we're already free, stupid mortal." The military landing on the city, issuing a curfew for all remaining citizens. Hef, Trough, and EOD watch this on the news as the commander is setting up checkpoints throughout the city to contain the EOD problem. EOD members rally saying, "Just try it. We'll waste all of you." Deadshot issues a meeting to speak to his people. Now Deadshot says, "We don't know their full military power. These checkpoints that they put up during the week are going to make things even more worse. Katana," he says, "I need you to do reconnaissance on the military checkpoints. Food drops, manpower, access codes. Once you find out these, return to base, and we'll begin capture of the bases." Katana then gets on a motorcycle and is riding down the street until something hits her front wheel. Katana jumps off the motorcycle before it explodes and does a superhero landing. Katana looks up. It's Nissa, charging at her. Katana protects herself. Nissa and Katana have an all-out battle. Sparks fly from their swords clashing. Nissa swings at Katana's feet, but she jumps up dodging it, landing on her hand and kicking Nissa in the face, sending her flying. Nissa then gets up. Katana jumps back and says, "Why are you attacking me?" Nissa responds, "You EOD bastards tried to kill Cisco, and you've been killing my comrades since this whole war began. You must die." "How do you know I'm EOD?" Katana says. Nissa responds, "You're not a meta, so you're not part of Hef. EOD is the only group that contains highly skilled humans with little to no technology. Well, besides me, of course." Katana charges, screaming, "Equality or death!" and does a left slash at Nissa. Nissa counters and flips Katana on the ground. Nissa stabs the ground, cutting Katana's face. "That bitch nearly took my eye right out," Katana screams. "You bitch! I'm a general. You try to take me down, and trough is done." "Yeah, I know about you fuckers." Nissa also says, "Well, then more importantly, I should kill you now." Nissa then activates her enhanced sword as Katana charges in a blinding light. Katana's head is on the ground, and Nissa looks back saying, "One less bitch around." Meanwhile, riots are breaking out throughout the city. A fully healed Wally charges into action. Barry joins him. Murders, rapes, bombings, all happening at once. Barry and Wally manage to stop 67 crimes before they happen. Barry stops, exhausted. Wally catches a woman who is thrown from a 3-story building. A building is on fire. Barry runs in. He doesn't have much time, he thinks. In a course of 5 seconds, he's able to clear a 5-story building, rescuing 26 staff members and a dog. Wally then kills 13 EOD members. As they were shooting at civilians, Barry runs to Wally saying, "Stop, we don't kill." Wally pushes Barry off him and says, "If you ever try to stop me again, you'll be the next one I kill." And Wally runs off. Barry gets up saying, "Wally, what's happening to you?" An hour beforehand, the military has lost 25 soldiers in an instant investigating a Hef base. A new Argus leader, Harrison Wells, is riding in the helicopter. The general says, "Your product better deliver." "It will," Harrison says. Hef members are getting ready to leave when out of nowhere, crashing in above the hideout, is an experimental mech Argus suit, and is finished developing. 2 metas actually charge the mech suit, but they are cut down in one swipe. "What the fuck is this thing?" the members say. The new girl, Shadowcat, says, "I saw this in the plans before the building exploded, shaking. These are meta-human hunting machines. They have material that couldn't even be in this timeline." "What? A timeline?" the metas say. Then the mech charges at the metas. The metas open fire, doing minor damage to the machine. It then fires a high-power beam, killing 5 metas at once. What is this thing? Hef metas then run for their lives as this machine is destroying the building as well as them. I can't believe it. They're running," the general says. Harrison says, "I always deliver." 4 metas stay yelling, "A machine can't beat a god. Don't be foolish." One of the metas managed to cut the arm off of the machine, but the machine picked it up and put it back on and reattached itself. Shadowcat says, "Those aren't just normal machines. The schematics show that they're nanobots. They can continue to fix themselves." The mech then looks at Shadowcat. Shadowcat phases out of the building, just enough to see the building explode. The mech monster walking out with the bodies of the metas on his sword. The last remaining meta fires a black energy blast at the mech. It hits, but the blast is cut using the mech's sword. And then the sword stabs the meta in the stomach, the meta gouging out blood. "What are you?" Shadowcat then sinks into the ground as the mech is ordered to return. Minutes after Katana dies, EOD members are seen crying over the hitless corpse of their general. They radio back to Deadshot to inform him of what's going on. Just as they do, the hideout is raided by military. The military begins opening fire, killing 30 EOD members. Deadshot hears this back at the HQ. He orders an all-out assault on the military. "They kill Katana," he says. Captain Boomerang says, "Let me handle this one. I like the little bloke. Moments later, Captain Boomerang is at the outpost. Deadshot says, how will you do this? You don't have any backup. Did I need it when I killed those 3 trough members sneaking around? Captain Boomerang throws 19 boomerangs, cutting the heads off of 20 military officers. The boomerangs Captain Boomerang throws, he only has to touch them slightly, but he can freely control them. He's one of the best metas I have, Deadshot says. Captain Boomerang kills every military personnel in the base in under 2 minutes. Then military helicopters fire 3 missiles at him. Captain throws the boomerangs, but they enlarge and cut through the missiles, blowing them up in midair. Helicopters try to run, but then Captain throws a boomerang and is teleporting on the boomerang as it's flying towards a helicopter. He drops an explosive boomerang in one, the other he puts an acid boomerang. Deadshot calls him. He says, military outpost cleared. EOD members arrive to take weapons, armor, and vehicles and other supplies, and Deadshot orders everyone to go underground for the time being. Barry is running through the city and gets a call from Curtis saying an alert at the last standing Queen's Lab building. Barry gets there to find Firestorm. Ronnie? Barry says. Firestorm turns around and says, no one calls me that anymore, and a ball of fire is shot at Barry. Barry runs, dodging, and knocks Firestorm down. Firestorm then makes a fire tiger, and it chases Barry around. Barry, using his speed, manages to disperse the creature. Firestorm then flies outside and unleashes a massive fire wave at the building. Barry, using his tornado hands, was able to divert the blast. Firestorm flies back into the building's bottom, and from the bottom up, he blasts a fire fist through 4 levels, nearly hitting Barry. Robert comes from the shadows, shooting Firestorm with an ion blast, disabling him. Robert smiles, saying, that was easier than I thought. He reaches down to pick up Firestorm as Barry runs in. He looks, saying, who are you? Barry responds, I'm the Flash. I thought you were black, and you had a silver suit. What's with the red? He laughs, and then Barry says, wait, how did you get that suit? As Barry is walking, Robert launches up in the air using his rocket boosters and activates an electrical current. It comes out throughout the whole floor, trapping Barry. Robert then takes off, flying with Firestorm. Barry manages to harness the energy and redirect it into the floor and jumps out of the electrical field. Meanwhile, Diggle and Thea, healed from the bank encounter, head to a building suspected of housing EOD. Once they enter, is EOD with the mayor of the city. He is being threatened by an acid-spitting Meta. The Meta says, I know you want to live. Where's Robert Queen? The mayor says, how am I supposed to know? And is punched in the mouth. That fucker Robert knows where our base is. Either you tell me or you die. Thea takes aim. Diggle says, wait, we don't know how many there are. We don't know if he's going to reveal the location of the base or not. We need to be calm. Thea then puts down an arrow. The mayor gets a call. It's Robert Queen. One of the thugs reaches into the pocket of the mayor, answers the phone, and says, Robert, we've been looking for you. Robert responds, if you harm him, I'll show you hell is only a step away. The Meta says to the other EOD gang member, hey, tell him to come alone. Robert says, don't worry, I guarantee you I'll be there alone, and hangs up. The Meta then says, well, looks like we have no need for you. And the acid Meta fires an acid blast, only to be blocked by Thea's arrow. The acid Meta sees Thea and Diggle and says, you're the fuckers that caused me to get locked up. You don't remember. It's Chase. The EOD members start shooting. Diggle, with his enhanced AK-47, fires back. Thea tests her new trough arrows and blinds 2 guys, letting Diggle kill them. The acid Meta runs at both of them. Thea starts fighting him hand to hand. Thea runs to do one punch, but in an instant, she is slammed to the ground by Chase. Chase then looks to Diggle, about to fire an acid blast. When Thea stabs him in the leg with a fire arrow, he pulls it out saying, you bitch! Thea and Chase clash. Thea is thrown multiple feet across the platform. She fires an ice arrow, freezing the Meta's arm. He uses acid spit to break the ice from his arm. Diggle then fires, hitting the Meta's leg. 2 remaining EOD members fire and hit Diggle's ear. Thea turns and fires, killing 2 of the EOD members with a bomb arrow. Then she looks back. Chase punches her, breaking her jaw. Diggle then takes aim at Chase, but Chase jumps 9 feet in the air. Diggle fires. Chase dodges slightly, only being grazed by the bullet. He lands in front of Diggle. Diggle then begins to go hand to hand, kicking the wound that sends Chase to the ground. Diggle kicks Chase in the neck. Chase coughs up blood. Chase then kicks Diggle's ear, disabling him. Chase then fires an acid blast at Diggle. Diggle blocks it with his left arm. Diggle is shot multiple times until his left arm melts off. Diggle collapses from the pain, screaming in agony. Thea then fires her last normal arrow into the gun wound. Chase then jumps off the platform, running out the building. As he runs out, Robert Queen arrives with his suit. Robert, in an angry tone, says, "Where's the mayor?" Chase thinks, "I can't fight him like this. That fucking bitch." The mayor runs out saying, Robert, please help those people. They saved me." Robert looks at Chase and smiles, saying, "I guess you got what you want. I'm here. Now what?" Chase runs, scared of Robert's suit. Robert shoots an atom disabler beam, killing Chase. Robert then goes in to see the people who helped his old friend. Diggle's mask is completely destroyed, and Thea's mask is torn. Robert says, "Thea?" Both of them are unconscious. Robert then picks both of them up and flies off into the distance. Minutes later, Black Racer is seen running down a road. When he stops, it's Grodd and 9 other metas. Grodd said, "I knew I would find you. I've been sending signals to you. Even though you blocked them, I can still trace where you blocked them." Racer says, "Good. Now I can bring you to a higher power." Grodd says, "What? What's a higher power? We're gods, my boy. There is no one higher than us." "You're wrong," Racer replies. "There's a force more powerful than anything you've ever seen. Prepare to meet him." Racer runs, striking Grodd in the stomach. Out of nowhere, water comes up and hits Racer. The force is so great, it's enough to send him 15 feet deep into solid rock into the hill next to the road. Racer runs out of the hole, and fire and water are molten he sees. He also sees 2 metas, one's controlling the fire and the other one is controlling the water. They send an attack that tears through concrete. Racer uses a sonic blast to stop the attack. When the smoke clears, Racer is behind Grodd. He stabs him in the side. The other metas go to aid Grodd, but Racer runs and snaps their neck, except the fire and water meta. They manage to dodge Racer before he could get there. They attack Racer and do too much damage to him. Racer realizes, "I can't capture Grodd because I can't beat these little shits." Now that he realizes that, he sends a bolt and pierces Grodd's eye, killing him. The 2 metas scream, "No, later!" Racer runs off, escaping the encounter, badly damaged. Hours later, a funeral is held for Grodd. Killer Frost takes the lead of the Hef army. She speaks to Hef. Ronnie has been kidnapped. Grodd, who was like a father to us all, is dead. War, my brethren. Kill EOD, Trough, the military, that robot Black Flash fucker, Kid Flash. Everyone will burn for what they did to our father." Black Racer, resting in a semi-destroyed building. His suit is already starting to heal him and is starting to heal itself. Black Racer then says, "Wow, this isn't just some robot suit. What is this? It's alive." As Racer looks up, he sees the Flash running. He says, "Perry." He tries to get up, but the suit puts him down. He hears a voice in his head saying, "You're about to die. You cannot pursue the target." Racer says, I got another voice in my head. Funny." Switching to Barry, he's running to help with the evacuation of citizens. EOD has been targeting law enforcement all over the city, and they have a spot to which they're going to be targeting next. Days later, after the encounter, military has set up 6 bases throughout Central City and 3 in Starling. Frost is looking at it from the hack cameras through the city. Frost says this will make things more difficult. Hef members move into position of 3 of the 6 bases and simultaneously attack. Base 1, 12 metas charged in, killing 150 soldiers without taking any deaths. Base 2, 8 metas killed 100 soldiers with only 1 meta dying from a landmine. But in the last base, only 1 meta went. Base filled with tanks, machine gun fire. This Meta looks up at them and says, "You dare to fight a god?" Tony of Hef is seen walking past Base 3. He looks over. Blood. Cut in half tanks. "It looks like a tornado." "No, a comet hit this place," Tony says. A body comes flying out the window. The Meta walks out and looks at Tony. Tony has fear all over his body. He says, Shh, the Meta says. "Don't spoil it for the viewers." Tony drops to the ground saying, "I can't believe they unleashed them." The Meta then walks into the distance. Hours later, Rip hears about the situation from Laurel. He says, "You know it's time, right?" Laurel agrees. Rip pushes the red button. The button for war. Trough members prepare for a full assault on Hef. 18 land vehicles with machine and rocket fire. 23 fighter jets with tank-piercing rounds and transformable capabilities. 200 soldiers armed with futuristic technology. Not to mention Cisco, Laurel, Barry, Wally, Rupture, Nyssa, Hartley. Jesse's still down, but will recover soon. "And your dashing commander," Rip says. Trough army is ready to go to war. Rip announces, "It's time for us to take back this time period, once and for all." Trough roars, ready to go to battle. 90% of the base heads to battle with 10% left to protect the base. Trough splits off into 3 groups, Group 1, 2, and 3. The flashes are to assist all groups. Group 1 moves in on Base 1. Trough starts firing rockets, killing 20 metas. They instruct civilians to move behind them and escape. The metas are now fighting back, but Group 1 has the upper hand. Nyssa kills 2 metas with 5 swipes of her sword. Laurel screams, sending 3 metas into the cage, piercing their bodies. 1 meta smiles and gets off the cage. His wounds are healing. He hits Laurel, sending her flying back. Trough soldiers respond. One with a saber blade, cutting the meta in half with no effect. The meta immediately heals back. A green chain is seen cutting the meta's arm off before it managed to grab the other Trough soldier. The Trough soldier jumps back, thanking the chained Trough soldier for saving him. Nyssa walks up saying, "You know, I'm the one that fucked up Tony." The meta runs at Nyssa. In 2 seconds, she cuts the meta 8 times. He says, "Ha, doesn't work." He smiles, and then he realizes the blade had acid on it. It's actually burning through the meta's regenerative capabilities. Nyssa walks to the base and looks at the remaining metas and says, "Who else wants to die?" As the regenerative meta lays there burning to death. The metas charge Trough, and a battle that lasts 20 minutes goes on, with Trough winning, losing only 4 out of his 80 members and killing 40 Hef metas, claiming the base. Black Canary leaves the base to ensure 100 civilians get to the checkpoint. She is covered by 2 guards. As she is going, a sound is heard. The sound tears through windows and sends everyone. The civilians' ears are ringing from this. Trough members look up and they see, "It's Black Siren," one of the guards say. 2 of the guards charge her, but her blast disrupts their weapons. Siren reveals her name to Canary, saying, "Your boyfriend isn't here to save you now." Laurel sends a wave at Siren, but she deflects it. Siren's wave is too powerful for Canary to handle. She then tries hand-to-hand combat. Siren easily dodges her attack, kicking Canary in the face, punching her in the throat. She runs behind her and slams her elbow into her back, jumps and does a flip and stomps Canary's head into the ground. She says, "Wow, training with those gods. These past weeks have really paid off." Canary gets up and says, "You're not God." "My foot begs to differ," Siren jokes. Just as she says that, one of the civilians pulls out a gun and fires at Siren, hitting her cheek. Siren then blasts the civilians, killing all of them in one shot. Canary looks back and says, "How can you do that?" Siren grabs Canary and says, "They shot first." Siren picks up Laurel and throws her into the air. Siren then blasts Canary with her max power, breaking windows. Brickwork shake apart, and so does Canary. She becomes deaf, so she doesn't hear her heart stop. She becomes blind, unable to see her skin tear off. She fell into unconsciousness, so she didn't feel her bones shatter. She falls to the ground after the attack stopped. Siren says, "God, it feels so weird to see me, well, dead." "Huh, well, it happens to everyone," and walks off. Minutes later, Trough arrives with Hartley, but Later, it's raining. Harley walks over saying, "No, no, no," crying. He can't recognize her, but he knew. He says, "You meant everything to me, Laurel, Laurel, Laurel," and screams to the top of his lungs. Rip and the other members are crying as they hear the news on their comps. Barry asks, "Why didn't she call for help?" One of the soldiers says, "Looks like her comps are busted from the sound wave." Barry runs to the group too. Trop members are getting pushed back. Barry runs in a fit of anger and kills half of the metas, breaking the bones of the other 25. The remainder got away. Trop members begin questioning, torturing the metas, asking, "Where is Siren?" EOD versus Hef versus Trop war breaks out in the surrounding cities. Thea wakes up in Robert's lab. She says, "Robert, what?" Robert says, "Stay down, Thea." Thea jumps up and says, "Where am I?" She runs over to Diggle and says, "What are you doing to him?" Robert slaps Thea. He says, "Get a grip. I just saved your ass from that meta and healed you up real nice." He tells them how their friends are at war with Hef. She says, "You know about this?" Robert says, "Of course. You know who I am? I'm connected everywhere in the government. They've been watching Hef when it first started." Thea turns on the TV. The reporter talks about the death of Laura. Thea drops down and cries. Robert says, "The media is on your side, but the military is another story." She says, "Diggle, wake up." Thea runs and kisses him. She says, "Laura's dead." Diggle breaks down in tears saying, "It can't happen. It can't happen to Laura." Robert says, "Young man, for protecting her, I have a gift for you." Diggle's left arm that melted seems to be attached to something. Robert opens the container, and it's a mechanical arm, a blade, a gun, and a mini rocket launcher all in one. Diggle says, "Holy fuck." Thea says, "Oh my god, that's so cool." She turns around and says thank you to Robert. Robert says, "No need to thank me. I've always looked out for you, even when I had to throw you out to protect you from the mafia members that hunted me. I killed them, of course, but the family I left you with, you ran away. I thought those bastards had killed you. To see you alive, you're the only part of your mother I have left." Thea runs and hugs her father. Diggle sits there and smiles, but frowns when he reads the headlines. Canary down. Rip makes a trip back to the base for his time machine. The Time Master has found out where his wife and son are, and they're moving in. He retrieves them from his mother's house. And then they get back to the port with Rupture and Cisco escorting them. Rip says, "I had to capture this spot in order to get my wife and child out." "Why?" Cisco says. "You could just use your time machine to go anywhere." "True, but I have to park my time machine and I have to have a dimensional portal in order for Vandal Savage not to track it. Plus, this place is kind of out of the way. It's a baby clothes store." As they walk out, EOD is walking down the street and open fires on Trop soldiers. Trop soldiers take cover and return fire. The military, which was tracking the EOD group, starts firing down from the helicopter. Rupture and Cisco, Rip's family, all run out the opposite way. They run into Vandal Savage. He says, "Mr. Hunter, it's been a while." Rupture then attacks Vandal Savage. Vandal throws 5 knives at Rupture, but Rupture deflects them. He tries to hit Vandal but fails at the 5 strikes. Rupture fires a blast, sending Vandal flying into the distance. Out of nowhere, Al Ghul jumps from the roof and attacks Rupture. Rupture's outclassed Al Ghul's supreme swordsmanship. Rupture then smiles at Rage Al Ghul. Cisco runs to try to help him. Rupture says, "Stay back!" Rupture then programs his sight to self-destruct. He tells Cisco, "It was nice meeting up again." Rupture then runs, and in a blinding light, his weapon explodes, killing Rupture and Raz. Cisco falls to the ground, his mind racing. He loses control. Wally is in the location. As he gets there, he sees his pulse. He manages to get Trop's members away before the pulse hits them. The blast was Cisco. Cisco killed 40 EOD members, 25 Human Eradication Force members that were hiding in the ground below, and he destroyed 5 Argus mechs in the military copter. Cisco passes out. Rip manages to take his family behind a brick wall to stop the blast from hitting them. It only causes them to be alive but unresponsive. Rip watches as Vandal Savage takes his family from him. He swears and begins to plan how to get them back before he blacks out. Wally then runs and sees Racer in the distance and charges at him for revenge for Jesse. Wally gets badly beaten all throughout the city by Racer. Wally's on the ground. Racer has his foot on Wally's chest. Racer then looks into the sky. Wally then manages to grab a hammer and hit Racer, shattering his skull. Problem is, he's already healing as he's laying down. He's not dead, but Wally thinks nothing of it and runs off. Moments later, military helicopters find Troff's base. The vibe that Cisco let out covered the entire city, knocking out the power grid for a lot of major places, including Troff's base. It knocked out their electrical barrier, and it also knocked out their ability to be hid off of radar sensors. Two military helicopters begin the assault on Troff's base. Military helicopters firing missiles at Troff's HQ. Troff fires lasers back, destroying them. Two jets come out of the base, and the helicopters engage by firing a machine gun at them. The jets deploy a force field, deflecting the attack. Then one jet speeds ahead. The wings stretch and become blades. The jet slides through both of the helicopters, killing all members on board. Below, soldiers are seeing this, scared out of their mind, but still charged at the base. Ahead, unknown to the 50 soldiers, is a hooded Troff member with a double-edged scythe. The member waits until they get into the snowy trenches. The member then jumps 16 feet, cutting the heads off of 5 soldiers. Then jumps out of the way in the spot the bullets are hitting. The soldiers begin firing out of the ice trenches. Another Troff member appears above them with a sleeper simulant looking weapon. He fires a blast that kills 10 soldiers. The soldiers fight out of the trenches and manage to get to the ice enclosure. They make a few feet into the cave before they see it's a hollowed out base. The lights turn on. There stands an older Troff member. He appears to be using advanced cybernetics in order to keep up with the youngsters. He fires a grenade, killing 7 soldiers. He jumps down and the fight begins. The soldiers lay down heavy fire. The old Troff member slides and fires 6 bullets in a second, killing 6 soldiers. The soldiers hit the older member too much and his suit breaks down. 17 soldiers charge while 10 watch the door. Out of nowhere from the ceiling, a meta drops in, firing an electrical beam, killing the 17 soldiers. As the Troff member lands, the older one looks up saying, "Circuit, what are you doing here?" Circuit says, "Your ass is too old to be in this, 76. You realize we called you 76 because no one could remember your name, right?" 76 replies, "Whatever," and turns to the soldiers. The soldiers then turn around, but in the icy corridor, they see the member with the scythe and the member with the sleeper simulant. The member with the scythe is called Reaper. The member with the sleeper simulant is called Buzz. The military points their guns at Troff. Circuit fires an electrical ball, creating an electromagnetic field, taking the soldiers' guns from them. 76 says, "Give up." Then the soldiers pull out their knives and points them at the Troff soldiers. Circuit laughs, saying, "You know I have electrical abilities. What are you going to do with those pocket knives?" Then the soldiers commit the ultimate art of seppuku. The Troff members are shocked. "What determination," Buzz says. "That's more from your day, isn't it, 76? 76 responds, "The war for the 2 Americas. That was a good day." Meanwhile, in the far-off distance, Racer lays there. His suit is badly damaged, and his suit contacts Darkseid, saying mission failed. Darkseid is angry that they killed his creation. He says, "Ready the army for an all-out assault on Earth." Just then, the suit heals Racer enough for him to say that, "I'm alive, my master." Darkseid responds saying, "Good, my son. I'm glad you're alive. But it's still time for me to come down. They need to see their true God. What could have done this to you? I let my guard down. The Time Reapers, they look like they were breaking through." Darkseid responds, "My son, when I come down there, you no need to fear the Time Reapers. Hell will reign on the earth." Minutes later, Robert Queen is shown putting Firestorm's body into a machine. Firestorm wakes up minutes later angry, then he powers up. But it doesn't do anything but be redirected into the machine. Firestorm says, "How dare you do this to a god?" Robert said, "There's only one God, the Lord Jesus Christ. All of you are just lucky humans who got caught in an explosion." Firestorm says, "I'll rip your fucking soul out." Robert says, "Lovely." He then pulls a lever that begins to suck down Firestorm's energy, forcefully to charge up the Earth beam. Back in Starling, the military is trying to hold out against EOD's massive onslaught. Harrison Wells is on the scene in an office. He says it's time for humans to win this war, as the Lord God intended. Argus mechs start appearing in Starling and Central City. In Starling, 2 mechs approach the outpost. One killing 24 EOD soldiers, saving the military. El Diablo runs into one of the mechs. The mech identifies him as EOD, lunges and stabs El Diablo in the chest. The blade melts when the sword passes through him. El Diablo, in anger, then makes a humanoid fire form around himself. The form grabs the mech's arm and rips it off with ease. The mech fires a laser at him. The astral creature's leg is destroyed. El Diablo shoots out and rips through the middle of the mech. He then says, "So, the government has gone this far, bringing machines into this." He walks into the distance saying, "I'll burn them all." Back at Central City, Troth is losing ground between mech fire and EOD fire. Mechs rain from the sky, turning the tide of battle. Harley walks down with the blood allure on his arm. A mech walks in front of Harley. The mech is about to attack Harley, but then Harley snaps his finger and the mech's internal circuits are going haywire. The mech falls to the ground. Sparks are flying out. It's done. Harley just keeps walking and says, "Siren, where are you? The devil is calling you. It's time to go to hell." Wow! At the same time, Trough Group 3 is being overrun with Hef and mech fire. Rip radios Barry to go assist. Barry questions on Wally's location and Rip's family. Rip says he's not answering, but he's moving. He's on the other side of the city. What's he doing there? Barry asks. Rip responds, "I don't know, but his selfishness could cost lives." Barry questions what is Rip going to do about Vandal Savage. Rip responds, "I'll handle that myself, Mr. Allen. Until then, you're in charge. Make sure no one else dies." An awkward silence is between them. Barry then says, "No one else will die. Make sure you come back." As the transmission ends, Barry arrives to see Trough and Hef members being eradicated by the mechs. The meta's blood, the human's blood, all stain the ground and they stain the mech's blade. Trough members retreat and Hef members advance. 4 mechs killed 10 metas in under 2 minutes. The mechs then turn their attention on the Trough soldiers. Barry runs using a sonic punch that sends one of the mechs flying. Barry then runs and punches the mech 100 times. Those were vibrating punches that cause loosening on internal equipment. The mech falls. The other 3 fires lasers at him. By the time the last laser gets a foot away from the mechs, the flash is behind them. He phases through one of them, blowing up the mech suit. The last 2 charge after Trough members. They are firing back with no avail. Barry then says, "No more." And in an instant, the mechs were disassembled. Barry stands there and says, "No more deaths. No more because I was too slow," and runs off in the distance. Trough Group 2 splits into 2 parts. The first wave runs into Deadshot. The last wave runs into the lone meta of the Military Base 3 destruction. The first group engaged Deadshot from long distance fire. Deadshot hits every mark, killing 13 Trough members. The fire only ends when everyone sees a planet in the sky. It seems like it's coming," one of the members says. Deadshot uses that distraction and escapes. Black Racer runs on top of a building and says, "You finally arrived, my master." Apocalypse looks so beautiful. The second group engages the meta. The earth starts to quake, and then members found themselves being driven into a ball of a building. They are then slammed to the ground by the materials, killing the entire group. The meta walks again saying, "Don't challenge a god, you weak human shits." A mech falls in front of the meta. When the metal from the machine breaks off and crushes the internal parts, the mech falls, sparking and blowing up. The meta then walks past it saying, "Our members were killed by this?" "Those gods were too weak to walk among us. A god being killed by one of man's creation. It won't happen to me," he yells. Nissa walks crying about her failed attempt at keeping Laurel alive. She blames herself. "It's my fault. I should have kept her there," she thinks. Then out of nowhere, a piece of concrete hits towards Nissa. She dodges it and she turns. There is Tony. Tony laughs saying, "Sarah really did a number on that one canary bitch." I heard that bitch wasn't even recognizable by her lever. Nissa gets angry and charges at Tony. Tony then punches Nissa, sending her back flying. She blocks it with the sword. As she gets up, she says, "Don't you dare laugh." Tony smiles as Nissa charges at him, cutting the brick behind Tony as he dodges. He tears off a car door and throws it at Nissa. She cuts it in half and then lunges at Tony. Tony stops the sword strike, but when the enhancement activates, it starts burning through his hand. Then it's done. Nissa says, "What the?" Nissa is then hit in the stomach, sending her flying back. Tony says, "Since our last fight, I learned how to manipulate my body even better. I can focus it to one point." Nissa gets up, clenching her stomach. Tony says, "You know you're going to die, right?" Nissa says, "Good. Then I'll be able to apologize to Laurel." The clash continues. At the other end of Central City, task members are trying to move the final bit of members out of the way of gunfire, but EOD members ambush them. 35 of the final task members are under heavy fire from EOD. Iris is one of them. Eddie moves to the troops to cover them when he is headshotted. Patty and Iris scream, "No!" They can't see who did it, but it was Deadshot on a far-off building. Iris radios Wally. All of the trials members hear her plead. 5 trial members are running to assist. The task force keeps losing more and more people. EODs advancing on their location until only Iris and Patty remains. Their hearts racing, so is their mind. Iris grabs Patty's face and says, "Don't give in." Patty's crying, "They'll pay for what they've done." Then she opens fires on EOD, killing 1 member, but then gets face blasted by a meta firing blue fire. Patty lays there burning dead. Iris prepares for death. When trial members finally arrive, the 5 members are strong enough to kill the EOD metas and soldiers without taking any death themselves. Wally and Barry arrive. They both start to argue. She runs and hugs them and says, "I love both of you so much." Then her body just falls back. Wally and Barry sees it because to them it's in slow motion. They both catch Iris. Barry looks and says, "Iris?" Wally just stares there. Then her head starts bleeding. She is dead. Wally then breaks down saying, "No!" They look up and see Deadshot on the building. Barry goes through his mind saying, "I must kill him." Wally and Barry runs up the building, each grabbing one of Deadshot's arms and running the opposite way, ripping Deadshot in half. They both run back to Iris, staring down on her body. Now, in the distance, new, more powerful metas have emerged from Grodd's Secret's task force. One walking, the ground is tearing up. One walking by the building as it melts. The other one, water stops in midair. Then, the air just starts blowing upward from the last one. Could this be the best and most dangerous threat? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. Wally runs off. Barry just sits there and stares, ignoring the call from Rip and the other Trough members. Barry picks up her body and he runs as Trough Group 3 is being hammered by mechs. Barry seizes and puts Iris down. He runs past all 3 of the mechs. A sound wave that is so strong it sends the mechs on their fronts. Their back power sources exposed. Barry throws lightning, blowing them up. He picks Iris up once again and runs off. Trough members watch him leave and they all feel his pain because they have all lost someone to EOD or the Human Eradication Force. Racer is ready to meet Apocalypse. As he's running, the ground below him breaks apart. He's barely able to catch himself before he falls into the abyss. Then the gaping hole in the ground just closes up in an instant. What is that? Racer wonders. Someone walking towards him. Racer throws a spike at them. An earth wall comes up blocking the meta. "I knew it," Racer says. "You're the one that made a meteor come up in the middle of the city." "How?" Racer wonders. The meta responds, "I'm Earth God, one of the 4 gods of Earth." Gods, as in God of destructions. Earth God creates an Earth Dragon, and the creature clashes with Racer. Racer runs away and dodges the initial hit to the ground. Then Racer uses his sonic punch to destroy the creature. As he's running, he looks on the ground. There is Earth God. He said, "How could you, at these speeds?" "No matter how fast you run," Earth God says, "you can't outrun the Earth." Earth God grabs Racer's legs and slams him into the ground and the surrounding buildings, sending him flying. Racer dazed, saying, What just happened? Earth God creates a big ball of concrete and sends it flying towards Racer. Racer jumps and runs around the ball. He jumps off the ball to land on the ground, but the ground is not where it's supposed to be. Racer is 30 or 40 feet above where the ground was supposed to be, but the ground raises to its level in a moment. Earth God took a piece of the city and is holding it up in the air. Earth God says, "You killed our father, so I'll repay that debt." Racer says, "That monkey was your father?" Oh, there's an uncle joke in there, but I'm too old for this. Earth God then wraps Earth around Racer. Earth God picks him up and slams him into the ground. His suit cannot keep up with the damage he's taken. Racer then fires blue lightning at Earth God. Earth God brings up a earth wall and blocks it. His earth wall then turns to glass. Racer then runs behind Earth God and stabs him in the chest with his hand. Earth God turns around saying, "Bad move." Racer tries to pull his hand out, but he can't. Earth God uses his own body to cut Racer's hand off. Racer hits the ground in agony. Ah! How is this possible? You're made of earth. Earth God then creates a mountain of debris to slam on Racer. Racer then pulls the gun Darkseid gave him and fires it at Earth God. When Earth God is hit, the debris start to fall. Racer runs off as the debris hit the meta. In the distance, you can actually see the meta starting to be reformed from the debris. Minutes later, Barry is carrying Iris at the same cemetery as her father was buried. She took him there after their first date, he thinks. Barry cries. Wally is behind him. Barry puts Iris in the ground. Wally walks to her and says, "I'll make the one really responsible for this die," and looks at Barry and then begins to run off. Barry then looks at Wally and then with a sad expression looks back at Iris. He drops to the ground saying, This is all my fault. I guess me and Wally really can't get along. I'm so sorry, Iris, for what I did for my mom. It cost all of you to die. This is hell. I've lost everything I've ever wanted, horribly than I ever could bear. Iris, I love you." Barry, so confused and conflicted, needed to take his anger out on something. He then runs and sees military and EOD clashing. Barry runs and kills all of the 50 EOD and military soldiers in battle. Barry then drops to his knees, blood covering him, and he just stares into the night sky. Jesse Quick is seen at the back of Troff's base, changing in her suit, and tells the remaining members to let her out. The media is covering Officer Iris's death and the other heroes of Troff's deaths and victory. She runs trying to contact Wally. As she's running, she sees his planet in the sky. She says, "What the fuck is that?" As she's looking, she sees these demon-like creatures falling down from the planet and a stone creature on a throne descending behind them. As she's looking at this, she then begins to run to look for Wally amongst all the dead bodies. Demon minions come down attacking everyone in sight. Military in the area is pretty much eradicated, and when the DOA, that's Demons of Apocalypse, get into the mix, both sides lose tremendous manpower. Within 20 minutes, the alien invasion takes out 30% of EOD, Hef, Troffs, and Argus' full fighting power. Jesse finds Wally. He's about to jump off a building. Jesse runs and grabs Wally before he hits the ground. She says, "What the hell are you thinking?" Wally, with a sad expression, looks up and says, "Please, just let me join my sister." Jesse grabs him saying, "I don't want you to leave me. I need you." "What happened to Iris?" Jesse says, "I never told you this, but my brother was killed by my father, Harrison. I know exactly how you feel." She says that she's been broken about it ever since. She then says, "Let's help each other through this." They both kiss and cry, all while hell is breaking loose behind them. Minutes later, in another part of the city, a teenage girl walks down a path when 100 human members of EOD jump out from the surrounding buildings and starts firing. Over 400 shots are seen going into the teen girl. The EOD members are shocked. Her body turned into water," one of them says. She reforms and then says, "Did you really think that could kill a god?" Water from the surrounding area comes up, and each drop shoots into the head of all 100 EOD members. She then casually continues to walk until a mech is on the scene. The mech fires 15 shots into her with no effect. She uses a water whip to slice the mech's arm off. The girl says, don't even try to attack a water god. It's kind of like punching rain, she laughs. The mech then charges at water god. The mech pulls out its sword, but she dodges the attack. And then she hits the mech with an attack so strong the water actually started to rust the mech automatically. Water god then rises into the sky saying, you filthy creation of man, if you dare to attack a god, come! And then the mech jumps up to attack her, but then a fireball drops from the sky, hitting the mech and destroying it instantly. Out of the fireball, a person is seen. Over the mech, a fireball disperses, and a man walks out. Water god comes down saying, what the hell are you doing here, fire god? I had that. Fire god replies, it was your idea for the four gods to split up. We have demons and other types of elements that are coming in here. We need to stay together. Water god responds, we are too powerful as it is. We won't be able to have any fun if we stay together. You saw that the earth god easily took out the black racer. What's to be scared of? Fire god replies, earth god is stronger than all of us combined. We are the ones that have to be careful. And then fire god flies off into the night sky as water god just walks down the street. Meanwhile, back to Cisco. He lays there at his brother's feet, crying. When the air starts to speak, Cisco says, who are you? What are you? The air takes form. The form says, my name is Air God, one of the four gods of the earth. Cisco says, God, and then he looks at him and says, Hef, and sends vibes all throughout the area, destroying the surrounding buildings. Air God becomes air and escapes the damage. Air God says, you're a meta, but you're dressed like Trough. Ah, Rupture. I was gonna kill him myself. Cisco opens a breach. He punches through it, and it hits Air God straight on from 15 feet in the air. Air God makes two tornadoes and sends them at Cisco. Cisco shakes them apart using vibes. Air God says, what the hell are you? Cisco says, I'm Vibe, the ex-brother of Rapture, the one who will kill a god today. God destruction, Air God replies. But we're still gods, Air says. Air God uses his arms and performs a wing slash of the air dragon. Cisco opens a breach behind the meta and dodges the attack. Cisco takes aim at Air God, trying to shatter his nervous system, but then the air goes separate before the attack is complete. It only hits his finger. He says, for you to take on one of us means you're really a god also. Cisco said, if I'm a god, then I should be able to bring Rupture back. Cisco says, your fucking mentality is the reason this happened. Cisco sends a major vibe which shatters concrete, sending the air god back. After the attack, the air god wraps air around Cisco's neck, trying to take his air out of his body to suffocate him. Cisco then opens a breach in the airstream to breathe. He said, I know now. Know what? The air god replies. How to die, he laughs. Cisco opens 30 breaches around the meta. The meta starts reforming. He's like, how is this possible? Cisco says, everything operates off vibes, even the air. As the meta reforms, Cisco hits him with a vibe that's so powerful it sends the air god flying into two buildings. The air god is lying there bleeding. As he's bleeding, you can see a blood in the air trail he makes when he goes to stab Cisco in the side with an air blade. Barry runs to see this. Barry then runs and attacks the air god. The air god laughs. Cisco says, those attacks won't hurt him. Barry replies saying, I have an attack that will. He then runs and punches air god. Air god laughs it off. But then Air God actually starts burning. You can see burning ashes coming off from Air God. He's saying, what is this? What have you done to me? Barry says that I create friction every time I move. If I harness that friction, I can burn even the air. Barry just unleashes punches on Air God. Air God then is burning away. Barry continues the assault on Air God until he's fully dispersed. Air God then disappears with his last words saying, how could this happen to a god? And dies off. Barry runs to Cisco. They both hug each other crying. Barry helps Cisco up and they both say, we'll kill them all. Black Racer collapsed from the attack from Earth God in the hospital. He's using medications to numb the pain. The suit is taking parts from the machine to heal itself and to create him a robotic arm. A woman walks in. It's Caitlin. Racer says, Caitlin. Caitlin drops the materials, scared for her life. Racer says, wait, I won't hurt you, please. Caitlin smiles and says, but I'll hurt you, and fires a gun at Racer. Racer catches the bullet and runs and grabs Caitlin by the neck and says, shame, you never learn. slams her on the ground, and snaps her neck. In another scene, Robert looks outside as a lone meta, Killer Frost, is walking up to his building. He calls out 6 mechs against her. She says, "Let's play, boys." She insta-freezes on the mech and shatters 2 of them. One of the mechs then jumps up and tries to stab Killer Frost with her sword, but she blocks it using an ice wall. The other one jumps behind her, kicking her, sending her flying. She gets up. Her wounds are frozen shut. She then says, "Give me back Ronnie!" As she says that, the mechs look around. Robert looks out the window saying, "It's snowing? Impossible." He sees the ice dome over the area. Killer Frost is letting out bits of ice to freeze the machines using their air vents. The machines freeze up, and then she fires an ice blast, destroying all of them. She then makes her way into the building. In a separate scene, Rip Hunter is walking up to Vandal Savage for one last showdown. Darkseid landing on Earth. He looks right and sees people fighting. He swings his hand and destroys 4 blocks. Trop's jets engage Darkseid. Over 20 jets are blown up in an instant. Trop members and others see this. Darkseid looks down. Everyone is shaking scared. The Earth God then says, "A god fears this person? Who is he?" Water God sends a signal to Fire God to return to her. They both meet up, terrified at what they are seeing. A planet falling on the Earth, demons killing everyone, and this stone man that destroyed over 20 jets in an instant. Water God then looks to Fire God and says, "We have to do a contradiction." Fire God responds saying, "Grodd told us to save that until the worst case." Water God responds, "What do you call an alien invasion?" The worst case it seems," Fire God replies. He and his sister hold hands to summon up their elements. Water and fire combine for an attack that destroys 10% of Central City and only takes less than 0.5% of Apocalypse destroyed. Darkseid looks at the impact location of the blast. He says, "Let me show you the real power of God." He then raises his hand and uses his eye beam to generate a ball. He throws it at Starling City. The whole city is destroyed in an instant. Fire and Water God look in terror and take to the skies to see the damage. "The whole city in an instant?" Fire God says. "What are you?" Darkseid responds, "I'm a god." A piece of a building flies at Darkseid, hitting him straight on with no effect. Darkseid looks left. Fire God and Water God look left as well. It's Earth God. "I saw you from the other end of the city. Who are you?" Darkseid flies right in the face of Earth God. Darkseid says, "What are you?" "We're gods," Earth God responds. "We rule this world." Darkseid then smiles and says, "From your disposition, I can estimate you're the strongest one. Well, that's here anyway. Are there any more powerful?" Earth God says, "I'm the strongest. Leave or I'll blow that planet out the sky." "Well, if you can do that, you'll be a great slave." Earth God says, "You're funny." And 5 buildings come up and smash Darkseid, then compress into a ball. Darkseid breaks out and attacks Earth God. Earth God then rushes at Darkseid, making a stone fist, but it missed Darkseid's face by an inch. Darkseid grabs the face of Earth God and flies into the ground, smashing a 9-foot hole. The hole then smashes in on Darkseid. Earth God comes out of the ground saying, "You can't fight a planet." "Can I?" Darkseid responds as he jumps out, breaking out of the ground. He lunges towards Earth God, knocking him through 5 buildings. Earth God reformats and drops to his knees. He coughs up a little bit of blood. He then sinks into the ground and comes back unscathed. Darkseid's surprised. Darkseid then says, "That's a rare ability indeed, my son." "As I said, I'm the strongest," Earth God responds. "All regeneration has a limit," Darkseid replies. "And boy, you just haven't seen yours yet." Darkseid looks at Water God and fires his Omega beams. Fire God managed to divert them enough for them to dodge. The beams go back towards them. Earth God creates a wall 18 feet thick to stop the beam. It works. Darkseid says, "Not many people can stop that. The most annoying one is that red cape nuisance." Earth God jumps out of the ground behind Darkseid, and a giant earth hand grabs him and smashes him into the building. Darkseid breaks out and hits Earth God, sending him into the ground. Earth God quickly rebounds, saying, "Yeah, knock me into myself. That'll work." Darkseid says, "Oh, let's see how long you can last," mockingly. Earth God responds, "I was going to ask you the same thing." The two jump at each other, and a single punch breaks all the windows in 3 stores. Fire and Water God are fleeing and keep getting stalled by demons. There has to be hundreds, Fire God says. No, thousands, Water God corrected. 5 demons charge the duo. Water God makes the lake water slice them all in half. A bigger demon comes out and sends a punch that Water God blocks with a water fist, but it only stalled the hit. It broke through and the smash was strong enough to send Water God and Fire God into different buildings. Fire God looks back. It's like a planet is trying to attack one person. Those blocks have to be 5 tons of earth he's fighting with, he says after he sees Darkseid and Earth God. Earth God hits Darkseid and sends him out of the city. Earth God quickly flies to Fire God and Water God. Earth God one-shots a giant demon with one shot of a building. Earth God tells him to run. I'll take him out the city, but you guys have to get out. Our fight is going to destroy everything. Now move! Fire God then grabs Water God and makes a run for it. Earth God flies back up to meet Darkseid, but he's only able to hold him at the city limits. The fight erupts. All that can be seen is a giant human coming up from the town. Fire God and Water God are running through the streets, but they are stopped by a giant boomerang. They look up. Multiple boomerangs fly at them. They fly through, but no effect happens. Captain Boomerang flies down and says, "What the fuck are you? My boomerangs went right through y'all." Water God fires a water dragon slash at Boomerang, cutting the building. Captain Boomerang only lost a few hairs. Boomerang begins to take on the duo. Fire God says, "He's creating these things. He's a meta." Water God says, "You're a god. Why are you attacking us?" Boomerang says, "I'm not a god. I'm just a man who lost everything because of you half bastards." Captain throws a boomerang at Water God. She lets it pass through, but it freezes instead on her neck. She falls to the ground trying to break the ice. "Ah, I see that did work," Captain Boomerang says. "What did you do?" Fire God asks. "I can manipulate these things I create to anything I want." Water God breaks her ice lock on her neck. Fire God says, "He's powerful. We need to not underestimate him." Fire God shoots 7 fire blasts at Captain Boomerang. Captain Boomerang throws at the same time 7 boomerangs back, freezing the blast. Water God then uses water around him to trap the captain. Fire God breathes fire at Captain Boomerang. The fire is then diverted. Fire God says, "What the hell?" Water God looks and says, "Why the hell did you stop?" Fire God says, "I don't know. I didn't do it." Before he can continue, El Diablo flies from 20 feet up and punches Fire God, sending him flying 40 feet in the same building that the Slade Giant laid. Captain says, "Leader, you're here." El Diablo says, "At least you're alive. That monster destroyed the city and all the rest of the men." "Yeah, and the city's fighting back," Captain Boomerang replied. "Sure glad I'm not fighting them. But I'll take that water, bitch." Captain Boomerang throws 13 boomerangs filled with acid at Water God. Water God barely manages to dodge it. The fight progressed to where Water God is actually able to get by the ocean. She then pulls the water towards her, and a 50-feet wave goes towards Captain Boomerang. Before it hit, a giant fireball hits the wave, making it disappear. It was El Diablo. Fire God comes flying back. Diablo says, "I can't watch your back any longer. Stay alive." He says that he charges towards Fire God. The battle looks like one giant fire tornado, spitting out fire every 6 seconds. They destroy 0.5% of Central City in seconds. Captain Boomerang throws 50 boomerangs, lining up towards the ocean, making Water God go left. She continues until she is farther away from the ocean. Before she realizes what Captain Boomerang is doing, he throws 2 boomerangs, making an ice wall. Flying on his hovering boomerang, he punches Water God onto the ice. She starts to bleed. He says, "Oh, if you touch ice, you become solid." Makes sense. As he punches her 12 times, Water God brings water from a fire hydrant and knocks Captain Boomerang into a coffee shop. He bleeds and thinks, "This bitch." As she's bleeding, she thinks, "If I remember correctly, the news shows something about this type of thing happening to military helicopters. He's ELD alright, and so is that fire bastard El Diablo." Earth God and Darkseid's battle continues. Earth God using the city as a weapon hits Darkseid with 300,000 tons of force, causing Darkseid to cough up blood. Darkseid says, "Only a few people are able ever to seriously hurt me. You can't be a slave. "You're too much of a danger," Darkseid says, as Earthgod sends a 300-ton punch at Darkseid. Darkseid then stops the attack with one hand and pushes Earthgod on his back. Darkseid then jumps on the Earthgod's chest, and with one punch, he shatters the arm of the giant Earthgod. Earthgod then gets up and jumps back in order to grow his arm. Darkseid fires his beam into his hand. Earthgod remembers, "That's the blast that took out Starling." Earthgod fires 5 massive blasts of earth, using the earth beneath the concrete. Darkseid fires his blast to stop it. The earth blast managed to contain the explosion. Only 5% of the city was affected. Earthgod then charges at Darkseid. The clash is so strong it causes earthquakes all over the city. WaterGod creates a giant dome around the city, hoping to stop the alien invasion. Minutes before the Earthgods and Darkseid's fight, Robert is preparing to fight Killer Frost. He sends out all 19 of his mechs. She says, "This'll be difficult, but I'm coming for you, Ronnie." Minutes later, Robert manages to harness enough power to fire at Darkseid. He looks at the monitor and sees the Earthgod fight with Darkseid and decides to start the beam. He says, "Well, 2 birds with 1 stone." Robert then fires a laser. Killer Frost, exhausted, beating 12 mechs, looks up and sees the giant laser being fired. She knows she has to hurry. The beam goes to Darkseid first. Darkseid puts out one hand and stops the beam. He redirects it to the Earthgod, cutting him in half. Earthgod says, "You bastard," coughing up major blood crashing to the ground. The laser then stops. Robert drops, saying, "We're doomed." Killer Frost gets in, seeing Robert talking to himself, saying, "We're doomed. We're doomed." She picks up Ronnie and helps him out the building. She stops and is about to kill Robert Queen. Firestorm grabs her arm, saying, "Don't, just run." She gets out the building and says, "What was that for? He kidnapped you." Firestorm says, "I saw what he fired at. We're no match for that. Neither are the gods of the earth." Frost says, "Excuse me? The gods of the earth, no one can beat them." "You see the sky?" Firestorm says, laying on his back. Frost looks up in horror. Firestorm says, "That's why I stopped you from killing Robert. That was the only option. It wouldn't have killed me. Just drained me. Give me a few minutes and I'll be back." Frost says, "What's happening?" "The end of the world. And as gods, we need to see this through to the end," Firestorm says as they walk to cover. Tony is running down the street, missing an arm. He thinks back. Nyssa and Tony clash. Nyssa's sword stops all of Tony's attacks. He rages and picks up 2 cars and tries to smash her. Nyssa jumps up doing a front flip, cutting the cars in half. She then jumps back. Tony throws the 2 halves at her. Nyssa manages to dodge the attack. Tony then runs at Nyssa with a massive metal fist. "He must have used 90% of the metal in his body to make that," Nyssa thinks. Nyssa turns on her enhancements on her sword. Tony's fist clasps the sword. The sword starts to break. Nyssa ducks down, letting Tony fall forward. She then cuts his arm completely off at the joint. He looks and says, "You bitch!" As she looks, she's knocked back into the car. She drops her blade, and she is then punched 18 times by Tony. She thinks, even though it's not much metal, it still hurts, coughing up blood. Tony then grabs Nyssa and throws her on the car, ripping her shirt. He says, "You want to take my arm? Let my other one be a present." Nyssa is thrown and beaten until she's barely unconscious. She then feels an air on her legs, which recovered. Tony gets in between them, and Nyssa feels something inside her. It's Tony. Nyssa can only think back to when her and Laurel shared that one night. Minutes later, Nyssa is on the ground. Tony's having trouble zipping up his pants. He thinks he hears something and runs off. Nyssa lays there bleeding for 16 minutes. She then gets back up, puts her clothes on, and heads to find and finish off Tony. Tony is running down the street, blocks from Nyssa. He runs into a mech. The mech jumps and stabs Tony through the chest. Nyssa walks a block away, and a military truck mistook her for EOD. Nyssa is shot over 50 times, all throughout her body. The last thought she has was, "I'm sorry, Laurel." Harley is sitting looking at a picture of Laurel crying, and as he's doing that, he hears a familiar sound. He jumps up and runs to the next block. There, Siren has killed 5 more military officers. She looks to the left. It's Hartley. She smiles and says, "You're pretty cute. I could be your new girlfriend. I even have the same ass as her." Harley just stares and looks at her. She laughs and says, I mean, I'm the closest thing to Canary. Well, what you got anyway? Harley walks towards her. She laughs and says, oh, you're going to fight? That's fun. Siren fires a blast at Harley. Harley snaps his finger and the sound disperses. Siren says, what did you do? Harley doesn't speak. Siren fires a bigger blast at Harley. He walks and waves his hand and the sound is once again dispersed. Siren says, how are you doing that? Harley says, before Laurel died, she recorded this frequency. She wanted me to get revenge. And now that I know it, no matter how much you change your frequency, I'll always pick up on it. Siren then sees Laurel Canary device on Harley's neck. The last thing Siren hears is, when you see Laurel in heaven, I hope she's laughing when you fall in hell. Death. Pitch. A shockwave is bigger than anyone that Siren has ever hit Canary with. Siren gets hit with it. She thinks, wow, I died the same as her. So this is what it felt like. It hurts so bad. Her whole body disintegrates. Harley's gloves falls off. So does Black Canary's device. His ears and eyes start bleeding. He smiles and says, see you soon, Laurel, and falls to the ground in front of the destruction of 9 buildings from the blast. Racer has finished his mechanical arm. He's walking out the hospital saying, I must meet my master and apologize to him for the inconvenience. As Racer walks out, he looks to the right. There is Jesse and Wally holding each other. Jesse walks up and says, Wally? Wally stops crying once he sees Racer in front of him. Racer says, oh, what's wrong, champ? You need a hug? Jesse then runs to punch Racer, but Racer blocks it. Then Wally runs under Jesse's arm and punches Racer in the face. Racer says, is that the best you have? No wonder you can't protect Iris. Wally screams, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, and runs to attack Racer. Racer says, I guess you must have lost her for that reaction. Am I right? Jesse runs and says, didn't he show you to shut up? And punches Racer in the face. Racer says, let's take a run, and takes off. Jesse and Wally chase after Racer all over the city. Racer is blocking 2 of the speedster's punches with each arm. The fight is up a building, destroying the windows behind them. Jesse runs to kick Racer. Racer grabs her foot and throws her off the building. Wally says, no, and runs for her. Racer grabs Wally, smashes him on the ground, and says, I told you someone will die. I meant by me. Jesse says, who's going to die? Using her arms to fly, she kicks Racer, sending him into the air. Racer does the same technique and flies and tries to go kick Jess. Jess blocks the kick with her left leg. Wally is trying to manage the technique but can't do it. Jessie is then kicked down. She runs down the building to support her fall. Wally runs behind her. Jesse and Racer exchange 100 punches, 2 landing on Jesse and none on Racer. Wally kicks Racer using the momentum of him falling down. Racer is sent crashing to the ground. We did it, Jesse says. Racer gets up and looks at the duo. His suit is healing itself. Wally says, how does a suit heal? Racer runs and grabs Wally by the neck. Jesse tries to fight, but Racer kicks her in the stomach, sending her flying. Wally then sonic punches Racer, making him let Wally go. Wally runs to help Jesse up. They look at Racer. Racer shoots blue lightning at them. They barely dodge. Wally says, how can he shoot lightning? Jesse says, you can't. She rolls her eyes and throws her yellow lightning at Racer. It clashes with the blue lightning, and a bright shining light is seen throughout the whole city. Barry is at Iris's grave as he sees this. He knows his Racer and runs towards the light. The blast causes everyone to be sent back. Racer gets up with no problem, but Jesse and Wally are both tired. They charge at Racer, and together they punch with one fist next to another. Racer only using one of his fists to block the attack. The attack causes the window in the skyscraper next to him all to break. It's a 5-story skyscraper. Then they are all knocked back by the blast. Racer catches his footing and runs towards Jesse. Wally runs. He can't make it in time. He thinks of losing Jesse. He gets a burst of power and fires orange lightning at Racer. Racer is blown back. Wally says, you will not take her. Racer says, well, my suit can't take much more of this. I gotta finish this now. Razor then runs and punches Jesse and Wally 20 times. Wally is sent flying into a tree. Jesse is sent flying back too, but Black Razor runs and grabs her before she gets too far and stabs Jesse in the stomach. Wally seizes and screams, "No!" and runs at Razor. Razor hits Wally on the neck and says, "You weren't fast enough." Razor then drops Jesse's body and runs off. Minutes later, Barry arrives, horrified at what he sees. He says, Wally stops him and says, "You have it." Barry says, "What do I have, Wally?" "Our speed," Wally answers. "When the device hit you, it took some from me and Jesse, and it took some from Razor. I didn't notice it before, but I was faster than what I was, and so was Jesse when I raced her. You took our speed." Wally grabs Jesse and absorbs her speed, making orange and yellow lightning. Barry says, "Wally, please." Wally says, "Enough talk. I'll kill you. It's all your fault Iris is dead. It's all your fault Jess is dead. I'll kill you." Then Flash looks up and generates his own lightning. He concentrates and harnesses the power. His lightning becomes white. Wally then runs at Barry. Barry stops him with one hand and says, "Enough, Kid Flash." Wally says, "Don't you ever call me that." Barry and Wally's fight takes them over the ocean. Wally's attacks are so powerful they are splitting the waters. Barry says, "Enough, Wally. I have to stop Razor." Wally says, "I will, after you're dead." As they fight, explosions are happening. Earth God is losing ground with Darkseid. People are dying, crying for help. Barry says, "Don't you hear that, Wally?" Wally says, "Fuck them all. Just die." Barry makes the decision. He jabs his hand through Wally's chest, tearing out his heart. Flash runs the body back before the waves collide on the ocean floor. Barry then absorbs the power from Wally and promises Wally, "I'll never forgive myself for what I've done this year," and runs off to meet Black Razor for a final showdown. In an unknown location, Rip Hunter, along with 2 other Trough members, kill Vandal Savage's guards and rush in on Vandal Savage. The 2 Trough members rush Vandal and Vandal cuts their throats. The 2 Trough members clutch their necks, bleeding to death. Rip says, "I'll kill you for what you've done. Give me back my family." Vandal then says, "For some reason, I felt drawn to them, like I must capture them." Rip then fires his laser pistol, hitting Vandal Savage multiple times. Vandal Savage says, "Did you really expect that to work?" Rip then goes hand-to-hand combat with Vandal Savage. He seems to have an upper hand only for the moment, until Vandal Savage pulls out a knife and slashes Rip's chest. Rip then falls back to his family. His wife embraces him in her bosom. Vandal Savage looks and says, "I guess I get to kill everyone." That's when Kendra flies in. Vandal looks over and says, "I thought you were killed." She says, "Killer Frost tried to, but as you know, I'm tough to kill." Kendra then charges at Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage stabs her in the stomach and says, "You finally brought me what I wanted." Kendra smiles. Her mace is set up to be a bomb. Kendra looks at Rip and his family and says, "I'm so sorry." Rip says, "It was gonna happen anyway. At least I'll die in my wife's arms, and at least I'll see you in hell, Vandal." Vandal screams, "You bit!" And before he can continue, the bomb goes off, destroying everything in the unknown location. The remaining Trough members hear this. 76, Circuit, Rebirth, and Buzz go to try to aid in Trough's evacuation. Before they can continue, demons surround them. Soldier 76 says, "I've seen worse in Vietnam." Soldier 76 then charges at the demons. The Trough members charge into their death. 76 manages to kill 12 demons before his demise. Circuit manages to kill 28 demons before his. Buzz was the first to go, not even managing to kill 1 demon. Reaper manages to kill 34 demons before his ultimate demise by a overbearingly giant demon. As Barry's running to meet Black Razor, he sees 2 bodies. He stops and examines them. It's Diggle and Thea. They seem to have been killed when Darkseid first descended to Earth. Barry then looks up and continues his run towards Black Razor. Once Barry meets Razor, Razor is bathing in the rays from Apocalypse. He says, Barry, Barry, Barry. Look at what we have here. Once again, you're the good guy saving the world, and I'm the bad one trying to destroy it. Oh, it's so fun, isn't it? You've killed everyone that you ever loved. So am I really the bad guy? I mean, let's be honest. If you didn't change the timeline, I wouldn't be here. I would be stuck in the Time Reaper zone, but now I'm here. You've killed everyone. Barry then runs towards Racer with his white lightning clad and punches Racer in the stomach, sending him flying 60 feet. As Racer flies, Barry punches Racer over 50 times. Racer then grabs Barry's hand and slings him over into the ground, dragging his face 30 feet. Barry gets up and is unharmed. Racer says, "The ultimate speed force. How did you harness the speed force at this level?" Barry says, "This is the lightning of regret for everything I've done. I'll make it right." Barry runs and Racer chases him. Barry runs as fast as he can around the world, but he can't go back in time. Barry's wondering what happened as Racer punches Barry. Barry and Racer have a final battle that destroys 25% of Central City. Earthgod is now running from Darkseid's overwhelming power. Darkseid is badly damaged, but he's still more powerful than Earthgod. Earthgod has the ground grab Darkseid and spikes come all through it, but it didn't fully pierce Darkseid's skin. Earthgod says, "How can someone like you exist?" "God exists. I told you, you're no god." Darkseid then fires a blast, killing Earthgod. Darkseid falls to his knees and says, "He was stronger than that S." Captain Boomerang manages to get Water God away from the ocean. They are battling. They are now exhausted. Water God, without any great source of water, uses her blood as a weapon. Captain Boomerang charges at Water God, missing every whip but one, the one in the puddle below him, the blood puddle. A water whip cuts off his arm. He then starts laughing and creates a boomerang arm with blade attachment. Water God says, "You people really are monsters." Boomerang charges at Water God. Her blood is being diminished from Captain's attacks. She finds multiple dead bodies and uses the blood from them to overpower Captain Boomerang. Captain Boomerang then jumps in the air to cut her head off, but Water God uses the blood from animals also to cut Captain in 9 pieces. She smiles. Then the pieces become boomerangs and cut all of Water God's limbs off. One of the boomerangs is Captain Boomerang's eye, and it closes. His mouth smiling, laughing, is now stopped. Water God has been defeated. El Diablo and Fire God are still having their battle. The entire sky is filled with fire right next to Apocalypse. Back to Black Racer, he says, "There are too many speedsters. You and me are drawing on too much power." Barry says, "Well, you'll have to die," and charges at Racer. They exchange 1,000 punches in 3 seconds. Barry's white clad wears off, and Racer knocks Barry into the ground. Racer says, "As long as I'm alive, you'll never return." Robert, using his sniper ion blast, shoots Racer in the head, killing him. Robert then flies to Barry and says, "That should be enough. Now run, Barry, run." Darkseid brings down Apocalypse on the planet to merge it. It is a blast that destroys everything in sight. Minutes before that, Killer Frost and Firestorm are seen with Darkseid. Darkseid found where that beam was coming from. He figures out Firestorm is the power source and Firestorm blasts him. He grabs Firestorm and snaps his neck. Killer Frost then instant freezes Darkseid. Darkseid breaks out and says, "You must be one who thinks you're a god." Frost said, "I am a god." Darkseid says, "No, you're not. I am your god, and I am out of mercy," and blasts and disintegrates Killer Frost. Back to present time, the merge is disintegrating all of Earth. Barry is running just right past the collision. He manages to go back in time. He sees himself trying to change it and tells him not to, but his past self did not listen. Barry then stabs himself through the chest, causing his mother to die. That version of Barry disappears. Barry wakes up. Everything is back to normal, but Barry is not back to normal. All these people are like ghosts to him. He's killed Wally, and literally everyone else is all his fault, and he can never go back to the way it was.